the chat hasn't updated to be refreshed, so it's just like chat from the previous stream, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I'm probably going straight to sleep after this one.
Do you want me to put anything up on my screen, or you can share it here in Discord?
Oh, I'll give you the link when we get to that point, don't worry.
Great.
And now we'll have a nice chat. Probably put up something on Twitter as well, I always forget to do that. But, yeah, I checked out your double blade video and your Thanos one. Even when I was watching Endgame, I was like, that weapon doesn't seem that effective, or efficient, I should say.
I think I mentioned that video has exploded. We had afterwards.
Yeah, it's an odd one. It's almost like it has to be magical for it to be as efficient as it is.
Well, yeah. I mean, just with the sheer strength there, like, because you can do very basic strikes with it, but when it comes to some complex kind of maneuvers and, you know, trying to use the back blade for anything useful, oh, no, very, very awkward design. But that video is exploding at the moment. Like, oh, it's crazy, so...
That's awesome, dude. I imagine a lot of people are using it to be like, you know, Endgame isn't perfect. There's a lot of things to Endgame that people are...
Oh, see, I loved Endgame. I'm actually thinking of doing a video addressing all the plot holes in it, because a large amount of the plot holes are actually not that bad. They can be explained with things already present in the movie that they showed. And so I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see that.
Holes are actually...
I've got to cover that film eventually, and I still don't think I fully grasp exactly what all of the issues, or even the system they're using for time travel is exactly.
Well, we could talk about that in the stream. That one's a fun one to cover.
If you want to. Well, I don't see why not. I think Endgame's been out long enough now for people to be okay with spoilers. At least I hope so.
Yeah. Like the director, he actually tweeted saying, "Okay, spoiler embargo has been lifted," and I even changed the thumbnail of my video because I was explaining the time travel in a video, and I had to title it "The Confusing Part Explained" because people got a bit salty that I first had time travel in the title. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll change that," but now I've changed it back. So it's like...
Abide by those rules. Can't be spoiling Endgame, and then once the directors say it's okay, you're fine.
I didn't think it was a spoiler. I thought everyone knew that time travel was going to be in it. Like, because all the theories were talking about it, and like you see them in the time travel suits in the trailers and stuff. But apparently, no, people.
It's gone to a point now where spoiler is so careful that you even put in a video up saying, "I very much enjoyed Endgame because it has all the things that I like in it." People will be like, "Oh, now I know it has things that you like in it."
like
shit.
My Thanos one, some people were even annoyed with my Thanos sword video because I show that Thanos uses a sword, and they thought that was a spoiler. The fact he uses a sword in it.
It's nowhere near a significant spoiler, but there are people out there who really just want to know nothing. At that point, though, I'm just like, why don't you just not go on the internet? Because you're gonna find
I'd be
stuff.
interested to know if they've watched any trailers at all, because like you actually see the sword in one of the trailers, and so I guess some people don't like even avoid watching trailers because they don't want to know anything.
Oh yeah, you do see it. Yeah, I remember that. Well, you should just rely on that. Be like, the trailer spoiled it before I did, so it's all good. Then again, people might be like, "Oh, I don't watch the trailers."
Yeah.
Specifically for spoilers, but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no, me and Rags both really liked Endgame as well, but it's complicated to break down that story. For exactly all of its issues. I'm assuming that the ones you were talking about were mainly to do with time travel, or...
No, the time travel is surprisingly coherent for the type of time travel that they were using. They didn't explain it well, which is why it could be really confusing in a movie. But a whole heap of the other like plot holes, you know, about Iron Man's gauntlet versus the Infinity Gauntlet, and why could they use it and stuff. And then there's also the one about how did Thanos go forward in time if they were limited by the Pym particles and stuff, because technically Nebula only got a hold of one set of Pym particles from her past self, so how is she able to bring the others forward and things? So those type of plot holes.
The only one I've heard to explain that is that Thanos' team would have replicated it, I guess.
Well, I think there's an easier answer. There was actually another set of Pym particles left in that time, in that parallel reality. It was on Black Widow. She never used them to come forward.
So the idea would be that they went and got those?
Yeah, they just grabbed those from Black Widow. I mean, it's you have to take a bit of a leap to explain it, but there is a way that they could have done it. So
yeah, I suppose. Well, this is the thing. I don't even get how his ship manages to come through exactly like via the rules as we understand them. I still don't really understand. I was just like, oh, that's okay. They could just bring the ship on through, because the idea is that I'm guessing the suits allow them to do it in the people, and it's like, is there a suit around the whole ship, or is there some equivalent of that? I don't know.
Yeah, see, that one isn't explained. I mean, there is the mechanic in Ant-Man where he can throw something at an object and shrink it, and it's just one of these little disc things. And so the kind of mechanic to shrink something large and a larger object exists in, the movies and things, but they don't explain if that's what they do in Endgame.
Yeah, I guess stuff like so if you probably understand it better than I do. Does it split off a timeline only if you remove a stone?
See, that's what some people are trying to say. And if they're going with a strict view of parallel reality time travel, no, as soon as you go back in time, you have a parallel reality.
That's how I see it.
And that's the way I feel that they should go with, because technically the idea that the universe will be destroyed if you don't return the stones is contradicted by the fact, or they don't really care, that Loki escapes with a stone in one of those realities, but I guess he doesn't take it out of the reality, so
yeah.
Why not say specifically destroyed?
I assumed that she was referencing the time stone specifically. Oh, yeah. I don't really know, because the whole Dormammu thing, most people bring up Dormammu.
Yeah,
like,
the time stone is the only stone that would have a negative effect, to my understanding, if you removed it out of one of the realities. All the other realities, if you take away any of the other stones, you essentially prevent Thanos from doing the snap later on, and a couple of other really bad things as well. But you also prevent Captain Marvel, which is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think we feel the same on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, because the confusing part for me, I was like, okay, so she's like, you cannot get rid of one of these. It'll cause a destructive timeline. It's like, oh, but in our timeline, they're all destroyed. Like our current, I was like, things don't seem to be that bad.
Like if the time stones are if the Infinity Stones are holding reality together, what happens when they're just destroyed? So if anyone is going to jump on the thing that the Infinity Stones are needed to maintain reality, that's contradicted by a couple other things. I feel it can actually be explained very satisfactorily if you just say, forget Infinity Stones being reliant on reality and stuff, and just say strict parallel reality time travel. And if you approach it from that perspective, it's actually fairly consistent. It works quite well.
Yeah, I was always more comfortable with that, because I remember our stream and stuff, people were like, you gotta pay attention to what she says. She says that the stones create what we perceive as time, or something like that. And I remember thinking, like, good God, that's gonna make everything so much more complicated if we take that literally.
I know. One of the things that I'm like looking at, and I wish I mentioned in my video, is that they essentially have the ability to reverse aging now. They've established that that's a thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like when they're testing it with Ant-Man, he comes back younger, and so Captain America's his old.
So they could harness that.
Put him in the machine. Put him in the machine and make him young again.
Well, what do you think about? Because that's actually a fair point that they could have discussed or whatever. But what about the whole the entire plot is kind of subverted by the idea that they should have began with getting more Pym particles by going back to find more. Because it takes away all of the drama of this being the one chance they have. It's like, oh, you could have just... And then the other thing of, like, the first thing I thought was when they were discussing when to get... They were like, when's a good time to get all these stones? And I was like, oh, remember Infinity War? When Thanos had, like, all of them? Just fucking get in when he's being attacked by the Avengers. And they've nearly nuked him. Just take it off him then. That's 4 of them right there.
Well, now you have double the Avengers fighting him. So he's fucked.
All they need to do is go in and someone grab Star-Lord and hold him back.
Which, by the way, I feel like we never really got that answered. Like, Doctor Strange being like, the only way we can do this is the convoluted way we get for Infinity War and Endgame. It's like, Doctor Strange, what about if you just portaled Star-Lord onto the other side of that planet?
Well, to play devil's advocate about removing the Infinity Stones, it was interesting. I think I'm not sure if they ramped Thanos' power up in Endgame, because he was tough as he was insanely strong without any Infinity Stones at all, and he technically beat Cap, Thor, and Iron Man all at their peak without any Infinity Stones. And so, if they got the Infinity Stones off Thanos at that point, that. If they're going to gauge his power off what he was in Endgame, they might not have been able to beat him even without without the Infinity Stones. And but the only way then is that if they use the stones against Thanos, if they got their hands on him, then that could have done something. And technically, the Infinity Gauntlet should enable someone to be able to use them, because that's what it was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very, very, very complicated, and I think that the more you think about it, when you have a magical gauntlet that's made of stones of the universe, you start to be able to be like, what about this though? What about this though? What about this? And it's like,
Well, it's funny. It's not too difficult. All you have to do is stay true to the rules that you establish. However, because this is I find a lot of writers don't pick up on this with magic systems, and Infinity Stones are a type of magic system. Even X-Men powers are a type of magic system, and just by showing how they operate, without knowing, you're establishing certain rules, and then if you contradict how they're used later on, well, then it's sloppy. It doesn't make sense. You got plot holes and all that stuff, but it's not too difficult, but surprisingly, very few people actually do this. It's just is to obey the rules that you previously established and don't break them, and then they can operate pretty well. One of the things that surprised me in Infinity War is the fact that Doctor Strange's portals can chop things in half when they close on people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw that. I was like, that's a pretty good weapon. Why aren't you using that? And it technically chopped the arm off or something of that Hulk-like monster thing.
Yeah. See, it's bizarre that not only do we have that as a possibility, but they confirm to us that it can be used to chop off limbs, specifically arms.
Yeah. Man, that'd be useful in other applications.
And that's the other crazy thing. Thor straight up just chops Thanos' head off in Endgame. So it's like, oh. So when you're thinking about like how they can go back to the time of Infinity War and see all of the previous Avengers holding Thanos, it's like literally send back Thor with Stormbreaker and he can chop his head off.
Yeah, he was held still for quite a long time. That's a pretty open target there.
You take that gauntlet, you go over to Earth, you get Vision's stone, which is at that point that's the last stone, right? Vision's, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Because he portals to Earth.
And if you were like, oh well, you got to wait for them to get it out of his head, it's like, yeah, fine, we can wait. we can have a sit down, we can chill, talk about the past and the future in parallel. And yeah, I just feel like a lot of the drama can be a little bit, diffused when you're like, why don't they just do this really obvious thing? Like, okay, fine.
See, it's fun because that's the challenge I have as a writer. I'm not sure if you know, but I'm about a month away from publishing my debut novel, and so that's exciting. And one of the challenges I have is to try and find all those potential holes in my own writing, and then trying to be honest. All right, if someone was actually approaching this as intelligently as they could, how would they do it? And try and address those things. And when you do, it's very satisfying. It's like, it works.
Fuck it, just have a theme.
Just have a theme, dude. As long as you stick to a theme, you're fine. That's how we know it works now. A theme of humanity is always going to prevail, or work together is the best. Something like that, you'll be fine. Break as many rules as you want.
I don't like breaking rules.
No. I wish more people felt that way.
Breaking rules.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Endgame, unlike certain other things right now, like Endgame's being looked at as something that was very satisfying to its fans. It gave the fans what they were looking for, which is starting to be frowned upon these days. Like the concept of being too obvious or it's like, oh no, that's exactly what the fans were looking for. You can't do that. And we had it with Star Wars. We've recently had it with a certain other TV show that started to do some shit that is infuriating people.
See, it's funny. I was going to actually say, like, the exact same thing. Is one of the reasons why I loved Endgame so much is that it was such a satisfying conclusion, and it was that by doing, like the fan service was a big part of it because you're invested in these characters so much. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, like the idea that someone's like, oh, they only ended up in the fight for fan service. I'd just be like, yeah. For sure, that's why they're all there.
Wasn't it fucking great?
But yeah, like the idea of subverting expectations is something that's actually like it's becoming almost like a trope of do not do this. Instead of it being something that can be done well or badly, it started to become a thing that's just like, Jesus Christ, stay away from subverting expectations. I don't know if you like to give you guys an idea because you're both not exactly keeping up to date with Game of Thrones. They have these things called Inside the Episode. They play after the main episode is going, and it's just the creators talk about some of the things that happened in the episode and why. And it's supposed to be a nice little insight into how things work. And obviously they score through the roof on YouTube for likes and dislikes sort of thing, as do any trailers. Like, everyone loves Game of Thrones. It's such a great thing. This latest one, after this is the third episode that has pissed off the fan base massively. I should probably check, but the even the Inside the Episodes sort of videos on YouTube are getting like slammed big time because every one of them has comments from the co-creators that are just like as if they don't even know what their TV show is anymore.
Well, I saw a YouTube thing that was recommended to me about how they decided that what's-her-face just forgets about the fleet and everything. and that was like the highlight of this YouTube video, and people were saying, what the fuck? What? Is that how you explain it all away?
You know what he's talking about, Shad?
Yeah, the fleet that shoots the dragon.
No, yeah, I'm so like because it's gotten around, it's a really bad quote. She is surprise attacked by a fleet in the ocean while she's on her dragon. It's pretty unbelievable as a start, but her dragon, she has two, one of them gets annihilated and killed. And so everyone's complaining about that as a fan base. Like, how did she not see the fleet? How did the fleet turn out? How is the fleet so powerful? All the standard questions. And the co-creators sort of comments on it is, well, Dany, she kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet. But it's like the most threatening thing her enemy even has. And it was like, wow. But yeah, so the Inside the Episode for episode 5 currently stands at 19k upvotes and 27k down, which is staggering for an official channel. And like all of the comments are just memes about how terrible the show is now.
Yeah, the third comment here is, I like Joffrey more than the writers now.
See, I know enough about the show to laugh at that one. Yeah, gosh. It's
disaster.
George R. Martin should sue.
So, to give you guys a crash course on why everyone's pissed about the recent episode is that Daenerys Targaryen, absolutely considered a protagonist of this whole show since season 1, has been she's been fighting her way to Westeros. That's her whole thing, is she wants to take back her father's seat of power. And the concern for a lot of people is that she'll get too evil because her father was the Mad King. And he burned, or he killed a lot of people that were innocent, and he threatened to burn his entire city, filled with innocent people, but he was thwarted by Jaime Lannister. And so the concern is like, ooh, how much of her dad is in her? And we get a couple of inklings, like
Well, this is Game of Thrones, you should qualify when you say that.
Oh, right, yeah. There's so much. Well, so she, to give you an example, she frees a place that has loads of slaves, and instead of, like, leaving it there, all the people who were previous slave masters, she has crucified, and obviously they all die. And a son of one of them comes to her like, you killed my dad, when he was like one of the only masters who actually fought against the slavery system and did a lot of work to help them. And so she actually has to face consequences. And the specific one that comes to mind that I really should have mentioned at the past stream was that her dragons are let free in this land. Just call it Essos for now. And this guy comes to her with like this bundled up sort of sack and puts it down as the bones of a child, and he basically says the dragon cooked and he like ate his kid casually. And so she's just like, holy shit, like she has to deal with like not only her her choices, but the choices like of being where she is and all that stuff. And so throughout the show she just has to deal with all these things. And like one of the recent ones where she captured a shit ton of like Lannister soldiers, and she told them all to kneel or die. And one of the higher-ups basically just said, no, you're not my queen, and I refuse. And instead of putting him in prison like most of the Westeros lords would do, and as Tyrion guides her, she just has him executed, and his son, because his son stands with him, sort of thing. And so you get this, like, oof, you know, he's a bit morally grey sometimes, ooh, you know, and everyone feels like she's setting up for maybe some dodgy decisions. And so, in the lead up to this episode, her best friend, 2 of her dragons, her loyal, like, bodyguard, and a large selection of her army have all been killed. And so she's gradually getting more angry because she wants to take the throne the quick way, the tough, well, the easy way, let's say. But it'll cost a lot of innocent lives if she does that. And so she loses her cool finally and just decides to do it anyway. She's had enough. And so we're all preparing for her to sort of think of King's Landing as a giant circle, and then there's a smaller circle in the middle of it, and Cersei is in the center of that smaller circle. Everywhere has innocent people. And so you'd think to yourself, so she's going to fly up to the smaller circle and burn Cersei, and then it's over, right? Cersei's the only reason that this war is even happening. Yeah. As soon as you knock her out, it's done. And that seems to be her plan. Like, that's how we understand it. And so everything's great. It's all going on. You remember those?
Fly the dragon up to the throne room and just poof.
Yeah, easy. You might even be able to just eat her.
You got a dragon. That shit. It's fucking mental.
And so you remember those scorpions, right? The things that are firing like ballistas that are very, very powerful enough to kill a dragon. There's about, I want to say, 60 of them in total perched around the castle and on the fleet that are just outside the castle. Or at least I'd have to check the pictures for that. But either way, she approaches this fleet. And this fleet that managed to kill a dragon with 3 shots is a fleet of at least 50. There's this screenshot where there's a shit ton of ships. And she's just flying directly at them. They fire 1 shot at her, miss, and then she obliterates them all.
Oh, they should have shot more than 1.
I'm glad you picked that up.
I mean, if a dragon was flying at me, I'd be like, fucking everyone shoot. Don't wait for me. Just go for it. Don't even, just shoot. Bam, poo, pew.
And so, in an instant, they're all fucked. Gone. And then there's a few of them on the walls of the city. She makes a run around the entire city walls and just breaks them all. And you're like, alright, she's destroyed literally the only way they could possibly beat her. So I guess...
Right, war's over.
Well, it's like, okay, so Cersei's the only thing left. And Cersei, by the way, is sitting on a balcony watching all of this, getting depressed. She's like, man, I guess I've lost. And it's like, oh, Jesus. And then, I explained this to Rags earlier, but I guess I should give you a bit more context. Tyrion did speak to Daenerys before the battle started, and he said, if they ring the bells in King's Landing, that means they're surrendering. It's the surrender bells, look at it that way. And he's like, you gonna call off the attack if they do that? And Daenerys is like, yes. And even, I think Jon even agrees to take his Northmen to a point of, like, standstill if they ring the surrender bells. And so Tyrion manages to get Jaime into the city to try and do it himself. And it's implied in the episode that Jaime rings the bell. I'm not 100% clear on that, but it gets rung either way. This thing happens, right? So everything I explained about Daenerys up to that point, she's perched on some kind of building. She's only got the Red Keep left where Cersei is, and the surrounding walls have been burned. Everything else is fine. So she has a choice to go and kill Cersei, or, well, that's about it, right? Because what else would she want to do?
Yeah.
She hears these bells being rung, and then she makes several faces. There's a lot of there's a lot of pans of her just being like, And then she sort of, like, casually, like, naturally, I want to say that, naturally, she decides to start killing women and children.
Who?
Literal civilians. She just flies around the whole city burning every single part of it.
Why?
In fact, I'd say it's safe to assume she burns everything except the Red Keep.
Why?
Why indeed, Rags? Why indeed?
Why?
So how much resistance did the city throw up?
All they had was the scorpions, and they all got obliterated in their, like, opening 5-minute attack.
Because it's interesting, like, I think back to any cases historically where populace was attacked during a siege or if a city was overcome, and it's usually as a type of retribution for resistance. Because before a siege, generally what would happen is that there would be some type of parley between the besiegers and the defenders. And the besiegers would generally say, okay, this is your chance. If you surrender now, don't force us to attack you and lose any lives. We will let everyone go free, and we'll take the castle, and we'll probably only keep the leaders, imprisoned and stuff. But if you resist, that's it. No holds bar. We'll destroy you and everyone inside. Make your choice. And the thing about that is if you don't actually follow through with the threat, next time when you're trying to take a castle or a city, that threat's going to be hollow, and it'll have no weight. And so there are, several. Now, it's funny. People think this happened in every instance. It wasn't in every instance. It's actually a very fluid, complicated thing about the terms of surrender and also victory and stuff. But this is one of the ways it could play out. And so if it's justified, sometimes it can make tactical, logical sense if there's more battles later on, and and that was the stipulation to begin with. But if the populace wasn't actually resisting and stuff, and no terms were given out, then it wouldn't make much sense at all to go no quarter on everything. But that's just kind of my view on it. I haven't seen the episode.
Well,
so
yeah,
I
I can
really comment.
Give you all of the context, because I didn't mean to imply she doesn't go for the Iron Keep, the Red Keep, sorry, she destroys it last, but the way I described it to Wolf when we were watching it was, think of King's Landing as a lawn. She goes line by line, just taking out everything, and it's like,
Gosh.
wow. But yeah, it gets to the degree where you can see there's just peasants in a line, like a woman and a child running, a couple of others, and Dany just burns them, and it's like, okay, there was just no point to that shot, but okay. A lot of people feel like it's in line with her because of that setup I gave you about how she gradually goes insane, but the only thing I think that's justified is her choosing to kill people who even remotely have any kind of connection to the enemy, right? Not peasants. The peasants are the victims in all of this. They're the ones that can't do anything, and they've recognized that throughout the season, that they can't do anything about these people.
Yeah, and what you said about her character is that it seems like at no point has she shown any inclination of trying to attack or kill someone that she sees as an innocent.
Yeah.
Sounds like she's always struggling with guilt, with the fallout of her choices when she was trying to do what she saw was right and being pretty hard and firm. And so, yeah, it very much, sounds something contrary to her character in a big way.
And what is typical for medieval warfare when it comes to peasants? What is because rampaging and pillaging, I imagine they're very much victimized, but I doubt there's an interest in erasing them entirely. I would have thought you'd want to at least maybe absorb them into your own sort of society.
Yeah, I assume. You got to make the bread. You got to have carpenters. You got to
exactly
have your infrastructure.
It always depends. Now, generally, of course, you would want to keep the peasantry there because they're going to be the means of producing wealth for you. You want to overtake them, but there are circumstances which arise which cause peasants to get caught in the crossfire. One of the examples I know is a siege of a certain castle. I want to look up this castle now because it's a really intriguing one. And so you've heard of King John, Robin Hood and King John.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So he gains power, and he is a trash king, and he doesn't pay attention to his holdings in Normandy, which is France. And so the king of France, I forget which one it was, was it Philip? Might have been Philip. He sees that there's an opening. There's no real big English presence in Normandy, so he goes to try and take Normandy. And one of the key castles to take is this castle built by Richard the Lionheart, and it is this beautiful thing. But I can't remember the name. It's bugging the heck out of me. If you bear with me, I'll be able to look it up in just a sec. And so to take the Normandy, they got to take this castle. And so they besiege the castle, and it's taking ages. So once they besiege the castle, right, all the citizenry there, the people in the nearby town, flee to the castle for refuge. And there's over 1,000 of them behind these walls. And the castle doesn't have enough resources to feed them. And so the defenders have to forcibly expel them from the castle. Now, this is interesting because we see some insight of the mentality between soldiers and leaders and stuff. The attacking French just let them go. Château Gaillard, or Gaillard is the name of the castle. So this is the siege of Château Gaillard. And so, yeah, they just let like about, 500 or so commoners go free, and they don't hurt them at all. Then the French king, comes and sees them doing this and is like, what are you doing? We don't want to let these peasants free because they're a drain on our enemy's resources. So if they try and free any more citizens, shoot them. And so in the castle, they're running out, so they have to expel the rest of and there's like 500 or so people. They expel them, and the French shoot at them, and they have to retreat back to the castle to get out of range, but the castle won't let them in, and they are trapped. They can't get past the French troops because they just get murdered, and they can't get back into the castle, and most of them starve to death. And so, vicious stuff.
Well,
and it's I
was just going to say, because I guess you're going to have the context. I have kept this from you guys just because I just wanted to find out how hilarious this is. This is at the point of surrender. Daenerys decides to do this. And I'm not just talking about the bell ringing and everyone basically putting their hands up. The Lannister soldiers, their entire army, they all drop their swords in front of Daenerys' army. They surrendered. And it gets worse because she starts to burn them all, and then our foot soldiers, the men of the north, decide to attack and kill all of the men who have dropped their swords.
Oh.
And John, Mr. Honorable, is like, whoa, guys, oh no, don't do that, stop. And he grabs like one of them, he's like, don't do that. And then a Lannister soldier like comes out of nowhere and attacks Jon, and Jon defends himself and kills him, and thus, well, war begins once again.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Yeah, so historically, when the citizenry... Yeah, when the citizenry got in the crosshairs, it was generally for, and I'm speaking generally, there'll be other examples outside of the ones I'm just sharing here, but it would be if they resisted quite strongly, and it was retribution for them resisting. Other than that, it would be if there was a particular bias or bigotry on one side and they just wanted to kill these people for any particular reason. And I mean, if you looked at the Crusades, there were some examples. It's funny, the Crusades are really complicated. People think it was always one side trying to butcher the other, and there were some big cases of some pretty heavy butchery on both sides, but there are other cases where people were let free and there was far more gentlemanly warfare as well. And so, like, when Jerusalem was taken in the First Crusades, it was a bloodbath inside the walls. But that's what we generally conclude. Though you can put up an argument to say, like, as to how reliable those accounts are and things, because usually the losing side will try and portray the winning side as being as brutal as possible, and so the accounts don't fully match up. And so that's a complex thing as well. But if there are grounds to just wipe out citizenry, it does seem like having a very strong sense of, bigotry on one side is cause for it as well. But those are really the main ones that stick in my mind.
I imagine that, there's no way that it can't happen, right? You get a surrendering faction, and then the other faction is like, okay, and then one guy... Because people want me to mention, it was one dude who threw a spear on the good guy team, and then everyone was like, fuck it, let's fight. But it's so unsatisfying to watch narratively, because these aren't just two warring factions. These are very specific characters doing these things.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it sounds like.
And they have reason to hate Cersei specifically, but they know that she's not even a liked queen, that she's there through fear and force, and so removing her would be something of a good thing to all these other people you are now burning.
Oh yeah, it would probably be more likely that the citizenry would have joined the good guys in this instance to attack the queen.
Yeah, and so very, very unsatisfying for a lot of viewers. And so Daenerys now has more blood on her hands than basically any character in Game of Thrones. And this explains why the actress has previously... She's got a lot of statements that are telling about this season, but the one that I found interesting was that she wandered around London for 3 hours after reading it out of just shock.
Yeah.
Which
well, we got the quotes from the chick who plays Arya Stark.
Yeah,
I guess their character and her boyfriend, and now we've got her just like reading the script. Your actors are the script is putting your actors into shock. Why are you doing this?
and this is not.
Yeah.
Just quickly, because you might be like, oh well, everyone complains about everything. It's like, no, this is significant. You've got a fan base is revolting right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty like I trust the fans in this case. It seems like it's going the way of Last Jedi, which is a tragedy, and that's what like this is what I'd be considering is like, what do you guys think? You would want where like how could they salvage it basically? Like for me with the Last Jedi, I need that movie taken out of the canon if I'm ever going to give the main Star Wars continuity another try. Like because it's destroyed everything. If anything follows on for that movie, I just can't watch it. It's done. It's over. And it seems like this might be one of the like with Game of Thrones with Episode 3 and now what's happening. I'm thinking like, gee, they'll probably get a really strong positive result if they just remade this entire season.
Well, this is the problem with reality, is that for some reason this is just out of the question. I'm like, why not? The writers are done, the showrunners are done, send them on their way. They can do whatever they want. Now, give the season... The actors, if they're not willing to come back or they've extended their contracts, maybe we have some trouble there. But if everyone is willing, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's remake season 8.
Like, the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk was made so shortly after the Banner one, and it did really well because it was better and the other one was trash. Like,
and how many Spider-Mans have we had now?
Yeah, I know, exactly. So, yeah, gosh, I mean, it would be the greatest thing in the world if we find out that Last Jedi is just completely retconned. I'll be like, all right, back on board.
And this is the thing, a lot of people are like, oh, please let Season 8 not be a thing. For me, I've been stuck all the way back. I didn't like Season 5 that much at all, and I would happily retcon that. But the thing is, like, we're at the point now where it's like Season 8 is that specifically bad, that divorced from other kinds of bad, that it's like, no, please get rid of this one. Like, I'm not kidding you. I'm not, like, memeing. I'm like, please, this is really bad. You've ruined... The joke is now, it's like, who haven't they ruined? Like, which character isn't damaged by this season? And it's like, oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, though, the memes have been fantastic from fan bases. Amazing stuff.
I love, like, just the whole meme culture that's around now. I think is just awesome. It's just the best.
Great way to deal with the pain.
It really is. Like, it's such a succinct way to communicate an idea that it's awesome. It's so good.
How do you get more dragons?
How do you get more dragons?
Yeah, like,
where
do they come from?
They were extinct, and then Daenerys had 3 petrified eggs that she brought into a fire that, like, brought them to life. There's no real, like, reasoning for that, other than it's a magical thing there.
She didn't have them fuck or something?
Nope.
Yeah, see, like, with how rare they are, I would have been thinking that's one of the first things you'd probably want to do is get more dragons. Like, if and they are so damn powerful, not if, they just are.
Yeah.
You want more of those things.
Well, see, episode 4 was like, oh, turns out the dragons aren't very powerful. And then episode 5 was like, no, they're the most powerful thing in history. There's nothing that can beat them. You're like, oh. And it's so confusing, because, like, I mentioned this on, I can't remember which stream it was, but I think Rags might have been there, but I was talking about how my, oh no, it was the one Rags was away for with the Act Man. I had a dentist checkup, and she saw I had a shirt that had Game of Thrones related things on it. Like, oh yeah, I watched that show too, and I was like, oh yeah, and you know how it is as a critical person when you're in sort of normal social environments. You're not going to be like, oh, I hate it, it's the worst thing ever. You're just like, oh no, yeah, no, it's great stuff, fun stuff. You like it. And the dentist told me that they were not liking this season, that it was nonsense. And I was just like, oh god, there's lots of memes in our community about, like, even dentists hate it. Like, we're pretty much done here. It's insane.
Are there some people holding on to their love of the series that they're just like, no, it's good, and I'm going to look for any reason to try and justify it?
Well, people do that with The Last Jedi.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. Like, it seems like that was the kind of reaction of Last Jedi. There was a lot of people still holding on to, no, it's good, I really liked it. But, now the dust has settled, I find a lot of those people have actually come over and started realizing, yeah, the movie is pretty bad.
Which is the thing, right? You can be on... Sometimes people can hate a thing for no good reason, or something like that. And you could be the one guy who's like, no, guys, you're missing the important parts of it that do make it make sense. And there's a lot of people like that right now who feel as though fans are taking this too roughly, that this was always going to be what Dany did, and it makes sense, and that she's caused the deaths of innocent people before, and you're just mad that because there's loads of takes like referencing quotes from far long ago where she'd be like, "I'm going to raise the kingdom to the ground," back, and everyone's like, "Yeah, awesome." But it's just like a reality of you don't kill women and children who are running for their lives. Like, there's no heroic protagonist who can do that justifiably in like a TV show narrative, like to the point of thousands, without us being like,
you're evil. You're bad.
Yeah.
You're bad now. You're on the shit list.
Pretty much. And a lot of people are like, you could have done it if maybe we had more time to turn her evil. It's really quick. Like, she was essentially the altruistic godlike character near the beginning of this season. It's like, whoa.
Things happen.
And so, yeah, these
She's
people...
had a bad day, guys,
know how
it was
it
that
is.
time of the month, clearly, and you don't know what could happen during that time.
You wake up on the wrong side of the dragon, and you just you got to roast some peasants by the thousands.
And yeah, so give it time, give it conversation. Game of Thrones, I am certain Game of Thrones will be looked back on like Lost and certain other TV shows where it's like, oh god, how it ended though.
That's a tragedy. That is a tragedy. But we got the books. That's the good thing. See, I've got the first one right here. And so I think I'll just get into the books, the novels.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your take on the books, honestly. Do a book review. Go for it.
I'll need to get through it. But I do have it on Audible.
Just finish the book, since he doesn't apparently.
But that's the thing. This is why I've been holding off. Is that the series isn't finished, right?
That's true.
And so when I hit where he's up to and it just ends, I can't. Oh, gee, that bothers me to no end. And so I've been kind of holding off, really getting into the books because they aren't finished. It's taking his time.
So yeah, something to show you. This happens in the episode. So this is a link I've just sent you guys. It takes you to an album. The first screenshot you can see is where they're standing at the time. Second is the pierce. Third is just him grabbing the blade. Fourth is it comes out the other side. Now, this is essentially the boss of the King's Guard fighting against a guy who's pretty strong, in fairness, but I'm so done with seeing swords pierce like two sides and a body of armor. Like,
I can't stand it. This is a big point.
That's ripping his beard out.
I call it a lightsaber moment. I criticize this so much. Is when swords suddenly become lightsabers and just can destroy everything, unless, of course, it's a main character. The only time, I mean, there are examples of armor working well, but for the most part, right? Armor generally never works in Hollywood movies unless it's being worn by a protagonist. Then it's fine. Then it can save them a lot.
Then it works.
To make it worse, I'm pretty sure, judging from these photos, if you guys can sort of tell, the dude is wearing chainmail and then plate armor on top. And this means that the sword pierced a layer of plate, then chainmail,
it's like armor's like a magnet. If you have a positive and a negative, like chainmail and plate, they cancel out.
They cancel out, yeah.
And it's essentially like you're not wearing armor at all. That's just a mistake on his part.
See, this is another reason why this stuff just annoys me to no end, right? Is that armor creates a problem. Like if you're fighting someone in armor and you have a hero character trying to beat them, it creates a problem that they need to overcome. You have instant conflict that you can then milk for good narrative storytelling to figure out a way just in the fight scene. You don't even need to go too far in plot. Just the narrative of the fight scene itself for how the character gets through and defeats their opponent. And so this idea of just, stabbing right through armor, not only is it unrealistic, it also misses out on something that could be really cool, because actual historical combat like that, when it's used realistically to get around problems like this, it's really engaging and it just looks amazing and stuff. Like, How much cooler would this have been if the guy grabbed the blade of his sword and did a Mordhouse strike with the crossguard going through the guy's temple, or something like that?
Yeah, or he has to wrestle him and get a dagger in his eye or something. Or have to push him off something really tall. Something creative, not just stab.
And, exactly.
Chaos Zeke said he removes the armor and there wasn't chain milk. There wasn't chain underneath. So interestingly, after this sword gets pulled out, I don't have a screenshot for this, but the guy he attacked takes off all of the armor. It all like comes off. It's almost implied that this stab managed to make it so that the armor failed to stay on. But it does look, like I said in the last screenshot, it really does look like he's got chainmail underneath the plate. If you look zoomed in, so I think it all just falls off at once. But the thing is, right, the context is this guy is a zombie that he's fighting. So this doesn't do fuck all anyway. Like, he has to do other things to kill this guy. But seeing it, I was just like, oh my god, what is it with this show? Because, I don't know if you saw my rage video for the other episode right the way through, but I showed a clip from a previous episode in season 1 where armor works the way armor's supposed to. And it was like really cool.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah, and that was actually an element of the storytelling, because I've seen that fight scene, and yeah, he just the Dothraki hits him on the side, does spit all, and then it gets jammed. He grabs the weapon and just kills him in response.
Yeah, it's a really nice and simple kill, and it makes sense.
Yeah, they were using logical realism, and that was kind of a good reflection on the more realistic approach Game of Thrones had once upon a time. And it's interesting that this stuff is happening at the same time when the plot and realism, like with what the characters would naturally do based on their personality, is just going out the window. It's all falling apart.
If you guys would like to click this link. So the first thing I want to bring up, again, and this is just, I know this is basically just shitting on Game of Thrones Day, but why not? Because there's a reason for this. But
the thing is, you do it because you like the show so much and you're disappointed. Like this is why, I have such vitriol against The Last Jedi, is because I love Star Wars. It was so good, and it was just ruined. So I get it.
This is season 4, episode 5, and really? Hang on. Every time I choose the one that I want, it's blocked. I'll be able to find a backup one. And yeah, obviously this is copyrighted stuff, so I'll just have to pause a lot, but particular point I'm going to be unavailable as well. Give me a sec. Yeah, because like there's more than one. This is the thing. If you have another character explaining, or visually showing you what armor is worth, the clip I'm looking for, which apparently I'm not allowed to show, maybe it's tied to like something else, but he basically
watch this video on YouTube.
I don't think because there's a cut. I want to move around it a little bit. It'll be tough, but I might actually have no choice here because I can't seem to find a third alternative.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll just share some of my own also pet peeves about the whole armor thing as well.
Yeah, go for it. I'll give you screenshots. That'll work.
It seems like when they show armor working in movies and TV shows and stuff, it's always full plate armor and everything. And but the thing is, there's so many other types of armor that are just phenomenally effective. Mail, and just even padded armor, gambeson and leather and stuff. Like leather, rare, there's a whole nother subject. But even if you do have types of more historically accurate leather armor, this stuff is good. You wore it for a reason. And it would, I would love it if a movie actually did a scene of someone wearing a really thick quilted gambeson, which is a type of quilted armor, and this stuff is actually surprisingly effective at stopping certain types of arrow fire, depending on the type of arrowhead. And it would just be such a good scene if you had this character wearing this gambeson, and he just gets pelted with arrows, but because they're the wrong heads, they don't penetrate, but they get stuck in the because when you shoot a gambeson, the arrow does get stuck in, but they don't fully penetrate. And so you can have this hero character who's just pincushioned with all these arrows, but they haven't penetrated fully and is still just going at it like a beast. That would be awesome. And so it's another cool narrative element that you could employ by looking at things more realistically.
Well, even when I'm playing Mordhau and I've got a character that I make who's supposed to be like very nimble and light, I'll still put a helmet on him to prevent the one-shot kills to the head.
Oh yeah,
armor is really important, and I love seeing it work.
It's satisfying.
At this point, it shouldn't just be a uniform. It is satisfying. It's details that you pick up on. When we were watching, when Mahler and I think Wolf was there too. When we were watching Terminator 2, they're accurate to the amount of rounds weapons have, and the characters have to reload weapons, and they, that creates an amount of tension when you know that you just can't shoot indefinitely at the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Armor is the same way.
Yeah, the little details, and they really, really help. So this is the timestamp. If you just jump with that video and just play, you can play it on mute if you want, but I'll show it for everybody as well. People will know about this if they've watched any Game of Thrones, but the idea is that the Hound is trying to teach Arya that it doesn't matter how quick you are or whatever, if you're against somebody with armor. And she goes to stab him with what is a very sharp... yeah. And he's so unimpressed by her and just slaps her down.
And I'm just having a closer look at his armor here. This looks like brigandine. Let's have a look. Okay, so there's a lot of studs on the front. If those studs are holding metal plates underneath like a layer of cloth or leather, yeah, you metal. It doesn't matter even how pointy it is. If it's like solid plate made like to a good level of quality, you're not going to get thrown with a sword. And so that's a great scene. What happened?
Oh yeah, and to clarify, it's not that swords cannot pierce plate armor, right? It is possible in certain contexts.
It depends. Generally, if it's plate armor, right, and it's made to a certain level of quality, like it's not tin-plated dirt or iron, no, swords will not penetrate the plate. It's almost, I'll go so far to say impossible, unless you have insane amounts of power behind it. The circumstances in which you will penetrate plate armor is if you're on a horse and you have a couched lance and with a full gallop, then you have a chance of getting through it. But even then, proper made armor is made to deflect strikes like that to the side. It isn't a flat impact on a flat surface. And so more often than not, things like that will deflect. Mm-hmm. So the way that you get through armor is going for the gaps, the joints, okay? You can get through mail, but people think mail is just, if you're thrusting and you got a pointy weapon like Arya's weapon here, that it'll always go through mail. No, it's much tougher.
So, and that's the thing, yeah. It was fun to see it, because it was like, oh, actually, like, paid attention to the point where they're having stuff like that, but it's just thrown out the window as of recently. Well, I say as of recently for a long time.
What does it do to this scene?
Yeah, what happened? Because that's great. Like, that's exactly how it would go.
And yeah, just a real shame, because you'd think that these are the things that they would want to maintain. Like it's like, oh, you're a medieval show celebrated for your sort of accuracy, details. Even though the production stuff for their clothing, a lot of people are always ready to talk about how great they do for that. By the way, the videos I actually wanted to pull up, I've watched them with people on Watch Together before, but now it keeps telling me that playback on other websites has been disabled by video owner. So it's just like, oh, okay. Yeah. There's a couple of ones I wanted to go through, or at least casually, but I suppose I can just talk about them instead. So this video will take you to, and again, you can just sort of scan around it on mute. I'll try and get it up for people to... The idea is that Jon is trying to sort of rescue the people who have been held captive by rogue members of the Night's Watch. And he bumps into Carl Tanner, who is essentially their boss, and he wants to have like a sort of fight with them. If you look at the place that they're in, it's quite small.
Daggers. He's using daggers.
And yeah, he's got 2 daggers as his sort of choice of weapon, and Jon obviously has the longsword. And they're in a very small environment, so a lot of people were just like, there's just no way Jon can win here, because he can't even get like a swing, or barely even a stab.
See, I have seen like actual HEMA practitioners practice daggers against swords, and there are ways like you can win with a dagger, but you need to fight very intentionally and very specifically. Basically, you have to block the first strike from the longsword, because if you don't, you're dead. It's game over. And there are so many, disadvantages piled against you, especially with reach, right? But one of the best ways to block a sword is if it's coming in with a strike. And so if you're fighting with someone with daggers, you would generally do better thrusting than swinging. But of course, he's only doing swings here, right? And even then, you still have a big advantage with reach. But if you can block one of those strikes with a dagger and lock it away, you just rush them and just go crazy, stabbing at the throat or something. You can win, but it's very difficult, very difficult. And people always think it's an even fight. No, it's profoundly skewed in advantage to the person using the sword. And if they have any brains on how to use it, the guy with the sword will generally always win.
You could even you could half sword with this, right? Sort of fight.
Well, it's funny, like the confines here, people, again, try, like, this is, I think, a more role-playing trope that comes from, like, D&D, where you always get a penalty on your attack roll if you're in confined spaces, no matter what. But, and people look at this scene as like, well, this is confined spaces. Not really. There's a decent amount of room. And because you don't do wild swings with a longsword, you do controlled swings, and the sword is usually always kept within your center of gravity and stuff. And so you only need like half a meter on either side to move this sword around, almost fully. It's only in the big, wide, heavy swings where you need more. And then if you're also focused on thrusting, you're not really at a disadvantage in this situation.
Most people's take on it was just the fact that it's such a small... confined sort of fight. Like, if it was an open space, then the sword is pretty much gonna definitely win, but there's so little space to move and swing that the second the dagger man gets in, it should be over. Because the dagger will just, in and out, in and out, in and out, over and over again with both of them, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You don't want the dagger person to close the distance. And so that's where you always keep the point of your sword on point, right, along the center line, and like if I was doing it, I'd actually wait for the dagger guy to try and engage the blade, to try and push it aside with his knives or something, because then all you have to do is withdraw your blade, deny him the opportunity of engaging it, but then his daggers are already in a position, you know where they are, and you can re-engage where they're not because you're right there, and then stab right into the chest or something. Because we know armor doesn't do anything in this series anymore. But I'm looking at the guy's armor. It looks like thin dress leather. That wouldn't stop anything. That's the other thing about leather. People think leather armor was huge. Everyone used it, so they put it in fantasy everywhere. And when they put leather, armor in fantasy, it's thin like dress leather, which honestly, that won't stop. It'll barely stop anything. There are basic cuts, of course, but a good thrust is not going to do spit against.
I think you guys might have left the watch together. The Oberyn and the mountain fight, actually, I can actually pull it up, luckily, so that's good. If you guys want to jump back in, then I can at least scan around it. But you mentioned it before. Was there anything off the top of your head you wanted to mention about it first, or
Oberon and the mountain?
Yeah.
It's been too long for me to mention specifics about it. I liked his sword. It's this beautiful big sword. Well, no, Oberon is using.
Oh, you mean right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the sword the other guy is using. Which guy is he? The mountain, who is fighting, or is
he... the mountain's the big dude, and then Oberyn is the viper, or at least I think that's what.
Yeah, the sword he's using is it's so big and beefy. It just looks awesome, right?
He's pretty much the best knight sort of stereotype you could be at that point. The size, weight, height. It's a top tier knighthood. He just needs a shield, I think.
But I would need to probably watch it again to point out specifics. It's just been too long since I've seen it. My general impression from what I remember is that it wasn't too bad of a fight scene. Just from memory.
How common would it be to have less so I know that spears were relatively common, but a spear in this regard, using it in combat like Oberyn does, where it almost seems like it's in replacement of a sword. Like he's using it so efficiently that it comes across as like he clearly values it over a sword, even in close combat, sort of thing, as opposed to just preparing for a specific goal.
Oh, well, it's fully viable. Spears are devastating swords, even 1v1. A lot of HEMA groups have tried it, and there's even other really good kind of medieval history-related YouTube channels, Scholar Gladiatoria and Lindy Bage. They did a collaboration. Yeah, the collaboration, swords versus spear, one-on-one, and in a lot of other situations, and the spear just dominated. When I say dominated, it wasn't like flawless victory in every case, but they generally the spear always came out on top versus the sword. So yeah, even in one-on-one, the spear is just phenomenal. But there are problems with the spear that make it not like because there's no such thing as the ultimate weapon. It's always about situation, the context that you're in, and so the things that the spear,
the ultimate weapon, is the best thing ever.
Oh, of course it is. The spear is not great against multiple opponents. It's hard to keep multiple opponents at bay. Sword, you can do pretty wide swings, and so that's a big advantage with a sword. Sword is more convenient, more easy to carry around. And though the sword isn't as good at thrusting as a spear is, it's much better at cutting than a spear. And so it really depends on what kind of what you're doing, what you need, the circumstances you're around. So yeah, and also just what you're practiced in as well. Even if a spear is, it might have an advantage, right? If you are simply better with the sword because you're trained with it more often, you're not going to pick a spear in a one-on-one fight. You'll pick with the one that you can fight better with.
Who would, if we were to assume these guys are at the best of their ability in this scenario, and then I guess you'd probably need to know the specifics of their actual armor as well, because it looks like Oberyn's wearing leather, while the Mountain's probably got plate, I think.
Yeah, see, it's interesting, because I've done sparring against a spear as well, and what the spear can be very difficult to fight with when you close the distance, and that's what I found. If I was fighting against someone with a spear, all I needed to do was deflect the first strike, and because as soon as you get past that first strike, if you close the distance, then and just because the sword, you can cut the sword right up towards the hilt, and so you actually can fight in fairly close quarters with the sword still, and you just rush them. And kind of like daggers against sword is reversed in this situation. You want to fight with the sword like you would be fighting with the daggers if you were fighting daggers against sword. But in this case, it's sword against spear. Yeah, you just rush them, and so you can win, effectively if you can exploit the weaknesses that the weapon has.
Because obviously the way this fight goes is that Spear can't do much until he starts targeting like the weaker areas, so like splits between the armor, or I think behind his legs is where he gets a few hits in.
Yeah, see, if he's getting a few hits, because if he could rely on his armor, this is the other thing that a lot of HEMA, even HEMA fighting and stuff, it's all about, most of it is training as if you are unarmored. There's of course armored HEMA, historical European martial arts, but the fighting style is completely different because, and what I see in movies and TV shows is it's always as if they're fighting as if they're unarmored. The way that they want to keep their guard, the way they're always trying to block every single strike that comes in. But if you're wearing armor, you have a huge amount of protection. And so the Mountain in this instance, if he could rely on his armor, he could just let Oberyn land one strike or whatever, rely on his armor, and just do a huge swing and chop the guy in two.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the other big advantages of having such a large sword, is when you do a big sweeping strike, that's a large area that you're covering in a big attack. And so it's the only way to dodge it is kind of to move back. And if you try and duck under it, you just put yourself in a worse position to get destroyed. And so it becomes a bit more difficult to actually dodge a cut than it is for a thrust. And so there's another pro and con between sword and spear. And so yeah, the Mountain, he could just take a hit and destroy him, but movies and TV shows, they rarely do it, because we do see that once with the what's the bodyguard versus the Dothraki guy that we mentioned before?
Oh, that's Jorah.
Takes a hit on armor.
Yeah.
Jorah, yeah. He just takes the hit on armor and destroys him. That's relying on your armor. So there is an instance of that being done in a TV show. But of course, they just kind of give up on it. That should be the standard rule. If you're always wearing armor, rely on it. Use the damn stuff, because it's really useful.
Interestingly, because of the way this fight ends, I'll try and talk about it once we get there, but talking about the wide swing sort of thing, like he splits his spear in two here and makes it, pushes it away. which is always going to be a benefit, that his sword isn't always going to be able to crack down on a... because it's a wooden spear with a tip, right? So if it was a... is there such a... they would have steel spears, would they, or would they not?
Well, the thing is, like, in reality, swords aren't great at chopping wood. They're not really made to do that. And so, unless it's a huge sword, and granted, in this fight with the mountain, he is using a huge sword, and so that one would have much higher chances of getting through, like, a hardwood staff or shaft of some kind. But regularly, a sword in a random fighting situation will rarely ever chop hardwood into... well, for one of the other reasons, right? You can do it if the wood is actually, like, stuck into the ground and is braced and won't, like, sway away. But in someone's hand, if you hit a shaft really hard, you just knock it aside because there's so much more give with someone holding it, and because of that, it's not braced against anything. You never will really chop through it. And there are some instances which things did break off because of damage or abuse and stuff. And so what they did, they added, I think they're called lanyards or something, or I forget the name. They're basically metal braces on either side that run maybe a foot or so down the shaft. And so you see this on poleaxes. If you look at like some poleaxes, you'll see these metal strips on either side, which is just to fix the head on the shaft even more securely. And with those things, there is absolutely no chance you're ever going to chop the head off either there. So very, like, yeah, rarely would ever happen in reality. Not to say it can't, but just rare.
Yeah. Because the one part we're about to get to, so if we assume this is one of the sharpest and strongest spears going, would it be possible if you sprinted a guy with, let's just say, some of the top-rated plate armor, could you pierce it?
No.
No.
No. It's metal. Like, if it's hardened steel, no.
What about, like, I don't know if you can, if you're in sync with the video, but I don't know if you can make out what kind of armor the Mountain's wearing here.
I actually don't have the video up. I didn't get the link.
Oh no, it's in the watch together.
Oh, where's that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's good. It's just a visual for the audience; they can see it. But I was just going to say, if you can you see it?
Yeah,
or no?
I don't have it.
You're in the watch together, right?
Don't know. I'm just in the chat.
The link, so this link, it says you're in here, because I think Rags always shows up with an actual face, so I'm assuming it's you.
Yeah, boy.
Oh, hang on, I see what it is. Yeah, okay. I thought that was just a link to a single video, and we had moved past it.
Oh, no, I can swap them out and stuff.
I'm with us now.
Oh, so wait, Rags, you've seen this whole time, have you?
Yeah, I've been watching this whole time.
Okay, cool.
3 minutes, 45 seconds.
That's, yeah, so, just let me know, Shad, if you can see what I'm talking about.
I'm with us now.
Now it's lagging. If you, what can you discern from the Mountain's armor?
All right, see, this is interesting. Like, it looks like a type of coat of plates or brigandine, where you see distinct squares kind of underneath a leather facing by the look of it that's riveted. Now, if those are proper, like, hardened steel plates, a spear isn't going to get through it. But the thing is, the way this is made, those plates, they are separated. And so you could stab through them, actually, you know, quite easily if you can land the spear in between those things, which is, funnily enough, why this type of armor was never made in reality. Like, if you have a coat of plates, the plates are much bigger and they overlap on top of one another on the edges, so it's much, much harder to get in between the gaps.
I mean, yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't know if we can see it from the actual hit, and it's not playing for me anyway right now, which is great. But we can assume then that that's what he does, maybe? At least it would make sense that way.
If he landed in between those plates, yeah, it could get through. But that's one of the pet peeves I have with Game of Thrones armor design. You see, like, the classic Stark armor in the beginning of the series, where you see, like, you know, the main guy, Sean Bean, wearing at the beginning that armor. You see distinct plates underneath this leather, but like half-centimeter gaps in between the plates. Is like, that's a big opening right there.
It almost, and if you can see it there, it almost looks like the armor's flapped up. He's managed to stab him.
Maybe, yeah, might have.
Yeah, which is just unfortunate in the case of the Mountain at that point. That's the last thing you want. But so the spear could feasibly stab through like a strong gambeson, do you reckon?
Or yes, feasibly, yes. Gambesons do better against cuts than thrusts, and so if you did want to get through Gambeson, you do want to try and thrust, and there is a better chance that you could get through it in those situations. But not to say in every situation. There are many situations where Gambeson protects quite well. You actually would have better chances thrusting through a proper Gambeson with like a spear or weapon than you would shooting through it with an arrow. Where like if the Gambeson has the right amount of layers, it is surprisingly effective at protecting against arrows and stuff, unless the arrow is like a specific type of arrowhead, like a bodkin or something. Then it has better chance of getting through. So yeah, it depends. It's always varied.
Yeah.
There's the armor I was talking about, the Stark armor. See the gaps between those plates?
Yeah,
like that. Bad design there, not good.
I mean, is that plate, or is that like, it just looks like leather to me? Is it?
Well, see, it looks like a leather face with metal plates underneath that's being riveted, and so it's a type of weird coat of plates. Real coat of plates, they're not designed like that. They're made to actually protect the wearer.
Of course, I've completely forgotten, as I always do. Shad, we have a running thing with this podcast, with each of the guests and the hosts, to guess who do you think will be the most inconsistent character in relation to the past writing that they've had in episode 9 of Star Wars. And you cannot vote for Kylo, because that's the obvious choice. And you cannot vote for Palpatine and Lando, because they're obviously going to be ruined. So, who do you think will be the most poorly written and screwed up?
Rey.
You going for Rey?
Well, just going off track record, I guess. I could be a bit harsh on Rey, but she really just fell apart in The Last Jedi and everything. And yeah, I would probably say Rey, but it depends, because JJ is back at the helm, and I think it's funny, that I actually was close to making a reaction to the trailer for the next Star Wars, because it just looked like they're doing the same mistakes. They're falling back on relying on nostalgia and flashy visuals and impressive, fighting and things. And especially with that Palpatine laugh at the end. Like, that is so cheap. It's like, we don't have any confidence in writing a good story. We're just going to bring back something from when Star Wars was good and try and shoehorn it into this one so we get you to watch it.
Yeah, I think you can make a good argument for literally any character being the most inconsistent at this point. That's where we're at. But yeah, go ahead, Rex.
What's interesting is I was reading the comments on that fight we just watched, and there's a lot of people saying things essentially to the effect of, remember when Game of Thrones was good?
Yeah. That's season 4. That's when I was at my peak investment, and that fight has always been looked at by a lot of people as very, very good. And it looks like it passes Shad's inspection, from what I can tell. So,
well, unfortunately, I missed most of it when we were watching.
Oh, well, I'll just pretend.
Yeah, we'll just say it was great.
With this one, you don't really need to know the context. It's obviously a group of dudes.
But, yeah, I will just say on the end of the last one is, even though its ending is graphic as all hell, I do like the fact that they show fights can get mixed up and that there's grappling involved in things, because that was reality as well. Fights could degenerate. You can grab the opponent's blade. It's a realistic, gritty kind of approach. As to could he do he's obviously, in fiction, he has the strength, but the actual ability to crush someone's head with your hands...
Yeah, you're gonna need an Iron Man set of hands to be able to do that, probably.
Yeah,
the mountain is a large person.
I just haven't researched, the techniques of crushing someone's head with your hands, so I can't really say how realistic it is.
Yeah, you know what?
I assume there is a level of strength someone could reach that they'd be able to do it. I just don't know if it's it happening.
Maybe the argument is that he pulled the skull apart by putting both thumbs in each eye and then sort of blew it up. I don't know. Either way, graphic as hell, as you just said. That shocked a lot of fans forever. But yeah, so this fight is 2 dudes versus 5, I think? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. And in the lore of Game of Thrones, this is the Sword in the Morning is his nickname. He's Arthur Dane, supposed to be the greatest sword in Westeros at this point, I believe. And his accolade is he defeated the Smiling Knight, who's supposed to be the greatest previous to him. And yeah, so the good guys are trying to get into the tower, and these guys are defending it. So if I can try and just we'll try and play it nice out of clips, and then see what you can see for interesting commentary. But already we're dealing with the fact that these guys seem to be in a much better armor setup with what they have compared to these dudes.
Well, it's interesting, right? If they wanted to win this, okay, it's so funny, and it annoys me. It seems like whenever there's a castle in a movie, they just ignore the fact that they have a castle. If these guys really wanted to stop, these guys getting in the castle, they would stay in the castle and shut the door. They're walking out on open ground is just an invitation for someone to use archery as just shoot them from a distance. It's an open invitation. And so this would be my first comment on this fight, is that, okay, if they really wanted to beat one side or the other, I mean, the guys, the Starks, they got shields. We see some shields here, so they have something that can protect against arrow fire. The other guys, I didn't really see any shields there, and so that's what you'd want to use.
They make up for it with no helmet.
I'll just be the Game of Thrones lore guy here. I believe it's just a tower that they're defending here, and they don't want anyone to get into the tower because there's something in the tower that's a secret. But I suppose that doesn't mean necessarily that they shouldn't be in the tower defending it from these guys, because either way, they want to kill them.
Well, they don't they don't have siege engines. They'd have to try and build a battering ram to knock down the door. Because it's funny, right? In the medieval period, there were things called tower houses, which were basically just towers, right? But they were made out of stone. They had no large windows that you could crawl through, and so they were still really well fortified. Mm-hmm. And they were in a lot of situations they were used to prevent bandits from stealing the food, and the community would stockpile their resources in this tower house. And then there are other cases where a lord had it, and that was his kind of personal residence. But so the only option you have then is to knock down the door, but then that means whoever's trying to get through the door, you can fight them one at a time. They're bottlenecked. Mm-hmm. And so even if this tower doesn't have crenellations to shoot it from, and it doesn't have an outer wall, just having a fortified tower is still a massive, tactical advantage that they're not using at all here. So, yeah.
And so the reputation of him being the best swordsman, a lot of people are upset because in the book, I believe, I can't confirm this, he has one sword and he's very good with it. In the show, to be flashy, they gave him two, and he dual wields at the same time. What is the commentary on that? What's the viability of dual wielding exactly?
Dual wielding is actually significantly effective, right? When you're fighting at someone one-on-one. And there are historical treatises showing dual wielding techniques and stuff, but it was more done as kind of a novelty, because the thing is, if you take it to a battlefield, the reason why you don't want to dual wield is because of there are other weapons that are more effective against armor, essentially, and so you want to use something two-handed heavy like a poleaxe or something like that. And that's if you're wearing armor and stuff. If you're not wearing armor, you're always going to use your offhand to hold a shield. The shield is your main, important thing. And so, what would win? What's more advantageous? Sword and shield against sword and sword, like dual wielding. That's actually a fairly close fight right there. It's hard to call one way or the other. Because dual wielding, right, in a one-on-one situation, and if you're fighting someone who only has a sword, you're almost guaranteed to win unless you're fighting a particularly skilled person who can do it. Because I've tried this just in casual sparring sessions, fighting at someone even with sword and shield, right, with dual wielding. It's so easy to get them to look at one weapon and just hit them with the other one where they're open. And so dual wielding is very effective in this situation, because they don't have bows and arrows. They're not using archery against him. It is a fairly good pick, okay? The thing that would really put him in a situation is if they just use arrow fire, because you can't block arrows with swords, not in real life. Yeah.
And so you'd say it is viable here then, would you?
It's viable. Yeah. In this specific situation, it is actually viable.
I've seen a lot of depictions of dual wielding with a sword and a knife, or a shorter weapon in one hand.
Yeah, absolutely. That
For
was
the
where it
Selmy?
became. Yeah, so when I was saying it was more rare and stuff, I was really referring to 2 equal sized weapons in each hand. When dual wielding was actually far more common was with rapier and dagger. And the reason why you use a shorter weapon in your offhand. Oh, there it goes through the armor.
Have you got? Yeah, I was going to say. Can you guys see that clearly? The pause.
It looks like he's wearing mail underneath it as well. It looks like mail.
Oh
under
God, yeah, you're right.
Under coat of plates.
Let me take a look. Let me see if if I can get better. Yeah, I can see the quality's better on YouTube. So let me.
If you guys have got my stream up, you'll be able to see the screenshot, like right there as well, because that's questionable, especially with the chain armor.
It would never happen. That's technically 3 layers of armor. Well, no, he's wearing a tunic underneath, and so he's even got a measure of padding under the mail. Then it looks like he's wearing a type of gambus. So it's padding, mail, gambeson, and coat of plates.
And let's not forget flesh and bone potentially. Like
that sword's a lightsaber.
And he did that with one hand.
One-handed. This guy is a beast right here.
In a spin, just for show.
Yeah, it's funny. Spinning can be fun. It can be. See what it's doing here? No, you can use it as a type of intimidation. But the problem with spinning is that there's always a position where your sword is not guarding yourself when you're returning it to where you spun it from. See, that's a good shot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, avoiding the armor. See, that's great. And so, yeah, when you're spinning, see what it's doing here? If you just see right where you paused it, he's open. This is why spinning is bad, because the spinning puts yourself in a situation where you will be open. And if someone just ran in with a
it's
big
like dribbling
thrust,
a basketball.
Extended thrust, they would get him. And so guard positions exist for a reason. It's to protect yourself. You hold the sword in between you and your opponent.
Like he can't know, the guy to his right here, he can't know that this guy can't thrust immediately.
Exactly, he's not even looking at him. And so if that guy just did a really heavy lunge into his armpit or on the side and try and get right in the side into his lung and then maybe the heart, like that could have been game over.
And yeah, if he's playing this in third person, he might have a shot, at least because he'll know. But I don't think that's how it works.
He needs to start a finishing move so that all the other guys wait for him to get done before they attack again.
Okay, see, what's interesting, what he's doing here, right? He's standing still. I've sparred against more, like where it's uneven, where it's like 4 against 1. And what you end up doing is you're moving all the time because the guys are trying. See the guys who were facing his back?
Trying to surround him.
That is an open invitation. They should just rush him on his back. And he's standing still. See, what he would be doing is he should be moving to his left and try and put everyone in front of him. You don't want to let anyone get behind you like that.
Because his legs look like a really vulnerable spot right now.
Right there. Imagine getting behind the knees, just slicing those tendons.
Yep. Down you go.
Yep. More spinning.
More spinning.
So this is actually what it looks good. It's not realistic.
It looks good, yeah.
But it looks great. And so I'm not going to criticize it because they do want fights to look just awesome. And they do that. So that's cool.
And it helps that this is all one shot. Because if you start zooming in and cutting quickly, we can't tell what's going on. Exactly. But then the problem becomes that choreographers have a much rougher time to teach all of these guys how to make a convincing sword fight that they've never done in their lives, potentially. And all for 1 2-minute scene in an episode of a TV show that's been running for years. You know, it's just... It's probably not worth the payoff, so they just try and make it look flashy. Focus, yeah. Yeah, he's got them all on one side, at least, so he's following some of your advice there.
Yes, exactly. He moved to one side, so they weren't at his back. Good to see. Double strike in the neck.
Shot, yeah.
More spinning.
More spin. You gotta get them style points up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very tempting to just... I wish I could let this run, but I mean...
So, what the other guys are doing...
Why didn't his sword just cut straight through the shield? Just cut it right in half.
Yeah.
So these other guys...
better than armor.
They're just flailing. There is no form. There's no guard position. They're just swinging wildly. And of course, like, you see people do this when they don't know anything about real sword fighting. And of course, the actors don't. And so that's exactly what they, just default to. No, like... one of the things that you want to do is when you're with sword fighting is you have a proper stance that's a guard position, and your strike should lead into another guard position or another attack from a good position. And so when you see actual sword fighting, it's so precise and specific. It looks great. But this, they're just flailing their arms around with a weapon in it, basically. So it's funny.
Don't pick that shield up.
Oh, so that has got to be a great advantage of dual swords.
Yeah.
Because you can only block
doing
one
that
of them.
but see, doing that with one sword would have done the job. And technically both swords were in the same attacking position. And so when you actually, if you're wanting to do like a double attack, you want to put the weapons far enough apart from one another so you wouldn't be the opponent couldn't block both with one weapon. But it looks cool. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, I guess what I was trying to highlight was more just he's in a position where he can only block one, so he's free to do whatever he wants with the other. He sort of just does a move that he probably could have done with one sword. You're right, yeah. Either way, that is supposed to be the benefit of dual swords, is that it frees one while you use the other to block the enemy sword, I suppose. And
is he wearing armor though? That guy?
This one,
he is. That's Stark armor. Yeah, that's Stark armor.
This one, and it's not through a gap, or at least it doesn't look like it's through a gap. They really like doing the pierce right through, don't they?
But it's like we've seen scenes where they don't do it either. Maybe again, they probably think only metal armor really protects, and yeah. But that sword is clearly
and the fact that he couldn't even get a really good, like, like a charge and strike sort of power behind it. This was he blocked one and just straight up just stabbed him straight through.
Yeah.
Like,
and if these other guys, like if say someone like this with this skill level really existed, and he was just he's fighting and is holding him at bay, right? And these guys can already see they're starting to get outmatched. You know what would have been just a really good move on their behalf is one of those guys behind, drop their weapons, rush him, and just grab him. Just hold him still. And even if they get run through like this guy, if that guy just got stabbed, was able to wrap his arms around him and just hold him long enough for someone to chop off his head, game over right there.
Yeah.
So that, yeah. See how poorly made that breastplate is? Like, that is fantasy trash. It's not even fitting him properly.
Well, look at the amount.
I was about to say,
a lot of him is exposed.
Yeah, like the opening for the arm is looping down really low. It's the sides of the breastplate are like clashing with each other, overlapping quite a lot. There's a big gap in between the neck and the edge where the arm is. It's too low on the gap between the breastplate and the fold, and it's too flat on the front as well. So the armor he's wearing is trash.
Tell me about this grip.
Oh, the reverse grip.
Oh,
that's a thing, right?
No.
Don't
do it. Don't do it.
But with the katana, it's a plus 10 damage if you hold it reverse grip.
No, you have less articulation, and it's harder to engage your muscles to do heavy strikes in the reverse grip, and so it's bad. Don't do it.
What about
but it looks cool.
Ned Stark's stance here, where he's got his arms the way they are? Is that anything, or is that just casual? So I always thought it looked kind of weird to me.
No, that's not a stance at all. Like, it's close to a low guard, which is like the full. And so if you like, so hang on, actually, I can get the full and another guard mixed up sometimes. But if you hold it low, pointed towards your opponent. So basically, if he was holding that sword like that, but moved it to his other hand in front of him, that is a kind of guard position, but he's holding it like on his side towards his back, and the sword's not really doing anything here, and is basically presenting his leg and arm to be cut. It's like free shot right there.
Because I'm curious what he's setting up for here, like how many things he's accounting for, and I think he just goes for a thrust immediately. I can't remember. Oh no, that's not at all.
Just a wide swing. That swing was so telegraphed, where he led in with his shoulder and arm, and like it's just telling your opponent what you're doing beforehand.
And it's almost like you'd let that hit your breastplate, Because he was going right for his breastplate, so you just let it hit you and stab him.
Exactly.
What are you gonna do? It's like
he's not even
thanks, I
aiming
guess.
for an open
It's not
area.
particularly powerful either. It was just sort of.
Yeah.
And this is the problem, right? When you
That wouldn't hurt him if he
really,
didn't have armor.
it's rare for a lot of media to survive this level of scrutiny. But hell, it would be great if they did. You know?
Oh gosh, yeah, like sword fights that actually have historical, elements in. They just look amazing. I actually want to show you
You ever
guys
seen The
something.
Duelist?
See, that I know is one that has much more historical sword fights in, but I actually haven't watched it, which is shame on me.
I've only
actually.
seen
Yeah,
like
that is-
some of the clips on YouTube, and the fights are very tense.
Yeah, the Duelist is actually a very well-known movie for having realistic sword fights in. Yeah, so some wide, heavy swings. He's aiming for the swords here. See, if you had a look at those strikes, right, even if the swords didn't connect, they would have missed because they're not aiming for their opponent.
Yeah.
They're aiming for the opponent's weapon.
And on the part of Arthur Dane, it seems to me that he's just blocking Ned's sword and not taking advantage of the fact that he has two.
Yeah,
Like, he's
exactly.
using one to block and not fighting back with it. But, yeah, obviously, he ends up losing this fight, technically speaking, which was inevitable, I guess, from a swordsman that's better than him and has the two-sword advantage here, which you would define that as an advantage, right?
Oh yeah, huge advantage. There was a lot of points where the swords are connecting. See how he just blocked both low? He didn't need to do that. He could have blocked it with one sword and thrust with the other, and Ned would be dead instantly right there. And so, yeah.
Almost there. I would let it run, it's just copyright's gonna hit us otherwise.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, armor works that time.
We actually used his...
use it. Look,
That was his
uses
van
gauntlet.
brace, right?
The gauntlet.
I've
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a metal brace, so it's not really a gauntlet because it doesn't have a hand guard. So yeah, you're right. But yeah, he blocked it. Okay.
I was about to say, that's actually quite fascinating that they actually put that in. I completely forgot.
Does armor work or not, movie?
Because that would be a tactic, right? To even push a sword technically toward them with
Absolutely.
your van brace.
Oh, just even knowing that your armor can deflect is absolutely. If you've got a fully armored arm, you can block something with your forearm like it's a shield. Definitely. So.
And Soul's gone. But then backstab through the throat.
And I like this part. I fighting multiple people. That's what everyone else is trying to do.
Yeah, interestingly, I think that was the first one he downed in this fight.
Yes, it was the hit in the gut. Yeah.
He stabbed him in the back.
Not very honourable, though.
Well, people understand the concept
if you're
of
gonna
knightly
hit
honor.
someone, you better make sure they're dead.
Yeah, like when a knight was trying to fight another knight, the only times when something like real fair play where you wouldn't just hit them in the back or when they're open and stuff is maybe a tournament situation where there's a lot of eyes on you. But when it's warfare and battlefield,
your life's
your
on
aim
the
is
line.
to win. Yeah, you win.
I think that was a neck shot. Let's just hope it was.
Yeah, hit to the throat.
Yeah, that one is that fight. You said you'd like to show one, is it? Or
yeah, I'm trying to look it up. It might take me a little bit to find it. But it's this group that do like cinematic movie style fight scenes, but with historical techniques employed. And it just looks amazing. It's phenomenal. So we can keep talking about some stuff while I'm looking for it.
Have you seen Oldboy, the long shot sort of fight during that?
No.
On the old one in the hallway.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy!
This is the thing. Like we could check that one out, but I mean, it's so difficult to maintain such an amazing sort of one shot while having choreography be perfect, and it's doubtful that it would manage to hold up every kind of scrutiny, but I'm sure it does pretty well. And then there's like the most classic and epic fights. I imagine that people would be interested in staying on Game of Thrones. Or the people, what do you want, chat? What sort of fight would you like us to check out? Because I'm willing to do anything from Game of Thrones. Or we could do stuff like I'm assuming you would have looked at the Hector and Achilles fight from Troy. at some point.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful fight scene. Just visually and cinematically, how well put together. In terms of like technique, you can always scrutinize and find things that aren't really realistic. But just if I was to say, give my opinion on does the fight do what it needs to do in the movie? Absolutely, that's one of the greater fight scenes in cinema, like history in my mind. Not to say it's perfect, but yeah, it's pretty darn good.
Got a lot of requests for Oldboy. A couple people saying Troy. I mean, I'm kind of tempted with Troy because I just love the Troy fight scene. It's so good. But I'd love to hear about how it's inaccurate. Like, I don't mind.
I'm trying to think of some others that might come to mind.
I mean, yeah. Well, maybe we can get through it a little faster than the previous ones. Oh yeah, throw your thing on first if you'd like.
This is.
Are we thinking about good ones or bad ones?
Oh well.
Well, if you want like
both.
If you want to see like the way that every single movie sword fight, like how it should be choreographed, this is it. So I'll just link it.
Someone said TLJ throne room, please.
So I've just linked that in Discord.
Are you still in the watch together? Because we can probably pull it up on there.
Give that a go. We will need to pause it at points and stuff, because they did a lot. They put in a lot of effort to make this, and but it just is phenomenal.
I probably have to do it for copyright anyway.
Oh,
but yeah,
I think I know about this one. Yeah.
Good lord, that's a long sword. And I didn't actually mean by classification. I just meant that is a long sword.
But funnily enough, it is also a long sword as well.
Oh well, excellent. I'm learning a lot.
Do you know that's exactly why they were called those?
That's genius. So what's any context we should be aware of for this, or is it sort of just a fight?
Guy, he's wearing kind of classic Landsknecht pants, very showy, and so this is already very historically accurate. It's technically not medieval period by the clothing. It's like a very early Renaissance, probably 16th century.
16th century?
Yeah. But check out just how epic. So every strike that he starts with generally ends in another guard position for him to move in again. Now, like these are guys who know what they're doing, right? So just watch this. So testing in the bind, aiming for each other, and so there were strikes against the weapon to knock it aside, and then moving in for a strike against the opponent, presenting the sword on the correct line against the and it's also fast paced and everything.
Yeah, I like to think that this is their attempt at being like, it can be cool and accurate, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And see this guy on the right, that's a Wrath. That's called Wrath. It's a proper historical guard position right there, and so. Oh, and so this guy is obviously on the left side. Now he's adopting a guard position, so he was in a recovery point there. And so he went into kind of long point. See how those strikes were held from his hands were high, and the strikes were moving around. See, it's so good, right? Because when you start to learn swordsmanship, historical swordsmanship, you learn that it's actually quite easy to defend your legs. You just move them back. And so a lot of your strikes end up being high, and you hold higher guards and you strike from in a more raised position. And if you're going to strike for the lower, it's rarely for like the knees or the legs. It's for the thighs and maybe the sides of the torso is as low as you generally go in trying to strike someone on the lower end with a sword, because if you go any lower, you can't hold a guard position striking so low when you leave your upper body vulnerable in your head. And so it's much better to strike from a higher position where you can protect your head, your torso, and your legs are protected because you can lean forward and just keep your legs back. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we saw right here. It's just beautiful.
I see a lot of sort of block, strike, drawback, strike, like a lot of sliding the sword around in different ways. You don't really see that in movies much at all.
Yeah, see, winding and binding, feeling out the opponent's blade. When your blade touches the other opponent, you can feel the pressure that they're applying to it, which can actually inform you in how they're going to strike from it. And so then that could alter what you're doing. And so there's actually engagements where the blades are just touching and the opponent's just kind of moving and feeling around the position to then thrust, and then it might move aside. And the sword actually might stay connected for a good few seconds while they're just doing this. And it still looks awesome when they do it. See, employing grappling as well. It's just...
It'd be cool if these guys would be able to do it in one take, this whole fight. I wonder if it would just be too difficult to sort of nail that, because, you know, they don't actually want to kill each other, imagine. Is it easy to tell that these are sort of sparring swords, or are these actually...
Well, you could see that they were blunt, like especially on the close-up and stuff, and you can just see that the tips are rounded. That's just kind of necessity. And they even do that in the actual films as well. When you look really close, you can see they're blunt. And so you can say, all right, you know, we could kind of ignore that just because of practical reasons. You don't really want to do it with sharp ones. I wonder if they actually hit each other in there. Oh, see, that was winding and binding. That was feeling out. Oh, and he's half sorting now as well. See, there's so much historical technique in this.
This is what you would see essentially the top knights, the top of their skill or craft doing stuff like this.
Well, no,
sword
the thing
fighters.
is, right? Well, no, see, this is that there is a huge unrealistic element to this. And it's how long the fight is going and how precise the engagements are, and so they've combined the Hollywood idea of a fight where it's drawn out with historical techniques, and that's what I wish Hollywood would do, because it can look brilliant. But in reality, sword fights don't go this long. Like in most situations, it'll end after the first 3 to 4 moves. And then a hit will land. And in some instances, in the first move, the first tempo, a strike will land. That's how quick real sword fights are. And so...
I've seen, like a lot of them, it'll be like, okay, 3, 2, 1, go, strike, hit, and it's done. It's just like, oh, there we go.
Yep,
but obviously, in a high-budget fantasy movie, that's going to be like, oh. Can't have it like that.
Exactly. And so, yeah, they've taken that idea of the Hollywood drawn out, you know, 2 people who are so equal in skill that they just can't land each other. But the other thing is that they've been deflecting and attacking and deflecting so quickly in response to each other. See what they're doing here?
Oh, that was great.
This is almost... It looks great. And they did it because it's choreographed. In reality, to deflect and strike and deflect in such quick succession over a long period of like this actually requires superhuman reflexes to do it in real life. And I've never seen it done, period, where it's like that. But with movies, you want to see kind of like a sword fight done with just such mastery and skill that you see people do things that are technically impossible, but we can suspend that, you know, just
exactly. From a guy just sitting down and watching it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if someone did have superhuman reflexes and knew historical techniques, it could very well look like this. And this is kind of what we want with entertainment. We want something that just looks phenomenal, and they can, you know, practice it. And see, it didn't go through his thick clothing.
Yeah,
he got a strike on the chest, didn't get through. It's very realistic.
We got hand to hand now, huh?
Oh yeah, people don't understand that medieval period had hand-to-hand martial arts.
And this would be, they would train you up for this as a sort of safety net sort of thing,
like,
I imagine.
Well, also, like, one of the ways that you fight armor is through grappling and trips and throws to knock the opponent off their feet, because you want to pin them. And so, like, there's like, you know, fist type martial arts with strikes and stuff, but if you're fighting someone in armor, punching and kicking does spit. And so the type of unarmed martial arts that were developed for fighting someone who had decent amount of padding, decent amount of armor and stuff are grapples, throws, locks, and things, just like what we saw here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. Return to your swords. You always feel much safer having a sword, I imagine.
That's exactly it. Grab the sword when you can.
Oh, you got both, eh? Oh, is he going to do the honorable thing and provide his opponent his sword?
He's going to do the honorable thing.
How much of that is real? The idea of like a chivalry representing the honorable knight's code, that sort of idea.
It depended. Chivalry is a very sophisticated thing, and the mistake is to think that it was a code that everyone agreed with.
Mm-hmm.
Chivalry was absolutely huge, right? And people would reference it and talk about it. It comes up in medieval literature all the time. But what you will find is that there is no uniform consensus as to what it is. The most fundamental definition of chivalry is whatever someone believed made a good knight. The qualities and actions that made a good knight. And if someone felt their complete obedience and showing no mercy meant making a good knight, well, that was chivalrous, just slaughtering wantonly. But if someone else believed showing mercy and restraint were good qualities that they wanted their knights, well, that would be chivalrous to them, and they would call that chivalry as well. So there are actual definitions of chivalry that outright contradict one another completely. And so, but there are examples of it all existing. What we see here, there's examples of stuff like this existing as well, and there's examples of the opposite. Heavy raft position, and then, see that is a good example of what a single longsword fight can often be. A single engagement with a single tempo riposte, and what he did, it was a block and an attack in one move, and those are just gorgeous. That's like the peak, swordsmanship that you want to achieve when you're learning how to fight with a sword, is single tempo ripostes. Like, if you can pull them off, they're the best.
Oh.
Half sword into the leg.
These are just great counters at this point.
Yeah. Winding and binding, disarm. Look at that codpiece!
Yeah, boy. And do they make a couple of those, or is that sort of like a one-off video?
So they have a YouTube channel, and they have a couple of different fights that they've choreographed together. This is, I reckon, their best by far. It just looks beautiful. Can you imagine if they had that quality in Game of Thrones, right? Like, it's just next level stuff.
I guess I'll post there's a link in the chat to their channel. I'll put that in the description as well if anybody's interested in checking that out. Accurate. What's the channel name? It's like Adoria.
I can't pronounce it.
I'm going to put the channel it comes from. That's the easiest layman way of me explaining it. Yeah, you can catch that in the description as well if you wanted to. Would you be up for checking out the Troy one now? Because I'm interested to see how it holds up.
Always.
As well as we're going even further back in time now, right? Because this is technology-wise will be degrading again, but still remaining just as interesting. Yeah, they've both got the same outfit here, right? They got spear and shield with sword on backup, I think is how this works.
And so Greek combat is interesting. There's far less known about it, but there is evidence that there were sophisticated martial arts, which makes sense. I mean, whenever you have anyone fighting with weapons, right, they don't want to die, so they're going to try and figure out how to do it better than what they could. And so, of course, martial arts are going to be present whenever fighting and combat is. And so the evidence we have for Greek martial arts is actually certain guard positions that we can deduce from vases and stuff of these, and things. But as to the specifics, no one really knows.
Best we can do is guess.
The question that I would have here is like one-on-one spear and shield. See, hoplites, they were all structured around phalanx formations, and so taken out of that situation, would they choose that? We don't know. Now, spear is a great weapon, and a shield is a great weapon, so the question is, and this is kind of my contention, is that it is really hard to manipulate a spear in one hand, okay? You're really restricted to just kind of thrusting and stuff.
Yeah.
And so the level of articulation and kind of sophistication that they show in the choreography here is actually unrealistic. The spear is actually too cumbersome and awkward to use the way that you see these guys start to use them, the way they, what does Brad Pitt do? He puts it behind his neck at one point and will do these weird kind of complex thrusts and stuff.
Yeah, but it looks great.
It looks awesome. It really does, but you would never do it in real life.
What kind of
you question the mighty Achilles?
Like, with my layman understanding, I would be like, oh, so Brad Pitt's wearing leather, I'm guessing. What would you call what he's wearing?
That's like
I don't know, it looks like a bronze almost.
Yeah.
Like a combo maybe or something? It just doesn't look that protective, but again, I don't know, the whole deal is that he's super amazing, so he doesn't necessarily need it. Hector, on the other hand, seems to have more of a metal thing going on.
Yeah, it's like this weird. It's like got these weird stud sections all plastered onto the surface of it.
Plate prototype thing.
Yeah. And they both took off their helmets to prove who they are and stuff, and I'm just like, would they just not put them back on at that point?
Yeah. Helmets are really useful, guys.
Gotta like them helmets.
Rags has learned this from Mordhau.
Oh yeah, helmet.
Helmet.
And yeah, the thing with movies that you'll really notice once you sort of accept it is a lot of films like to get helmets off characters as quickly as they can. Just to be like,
just so you
look at
can
them
see
faces.
their face and their emotions and, the engagement and stuff.
So that opening there, the sidestep, trying to get like the
like Brad, Achilles here, he has a very distinct style that's kind of given him to be reflective of someone who has trained to develop this system that's personal to him, that's really effective. And I think it just works really well for the visual kind of, element of the fight scene. As to how effective kind of the dodging to either side, not really sure. You wouldn't really watch their feet, you watch their weapon and where the weapon goes. There was a side sweeping strike with the spear. Wouldn't be really effective, but still, if you connected, it would be a bit of a knock.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like you can get a lot of power behind it when you're trying to do a sweep with one-handed spear.
No, not with one-handed. And in actual fact, if this was a one-on-one duel, there's a higher chance that they might have chosen to not use the shields at all to get more use out of their spear. See, what Achilles did right there, like, you can't do in real life.
I was going to say, it can't be that efficient, because...
No, yeah, like, there's not a lot of power behind it. And the spears look quite light.
Yeah, the spear would go up, surely.
And the spears they're using look quite light. If we have in reality, if you want a spear to have any amount of impact with like a bludgeoning attack like a quarterstaff, you would want it to have a bit more heft like a quarterstaff. These ones look fairly light, but they might have given them light ones because they're heroic, strong people.
Well, I guess he only uses it for one strike, and then he instantly moves to something else.
You could argue he's doing it to distract Hector a little bit, at least to be like, look what I'm doing. Maybe, you're like, whoa.
My spear happens to be here. I'll give one poke and then move to something else.
He just broke his spear
with a shield.
That's surely impossible.
No, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. It would bounce.
He's got a bladed shield.
A bladed shield. Yeah, that spear is made of paper if that's happening, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, he's doing it again, but this time, he's giving up on it. Yeah, and then they...
See, well, it's funny. You could snap a spear like that with the leverage if it was that thin, but they would never be really that thin or that weak.
Because he stood on that spear to break it there.
Yeah,
obviously,
they whip out their Xiphoses. Or Xiphos. What's the plural for Xiphos?
Xiphis?
Sci-fi?
Xiphis? Sci-fi?
It could be sci-fi, actually. A sci-fi. Great.
Yeah, these things as well. I love the sound design on this bit. They're also very. It's just so like. It's just like yeah.
So
I love movies.
Brass swords are a complex thing to understand properly in context. They're invulnerable here. See how they're bashing against each other? They're not getting any dints or chips or anything like that. Brass dints very easily. But
Bronze?
This is the thing. Bronze, sorry. Yeah, bronze. I'm getting those mixed up.
But brass probably does too, to be fair.
Yeah, well, of course. But, sorry, yes, it should be bronze. Thank you. The thing is, people misunderstand bronze, is the fact that it actually can have a pretty hard edge if it's work hardened, and can be about as strong as iron just by itself. But it's not invulnerable either, and it does dent far easier than steel by far. And so, like, it's kind of a balance. What they're showing here, they're showing that they're completely indestructible, especially this flat, sort of thrust that Achilles is doing to the shield. That would roll the tip every time with a bronze one.
But it's a cool stance.
But I like that the bronze, Xiphos he has there. It's kind of a Xiphos. It's a more fancy design. It had a central ridge. It looked great.
So let's talk about this holding the shield behind you technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, stylish, but at this point, why?
Clearly, the back of his head is itchy, okay? That can distract you in a fight. And so
he keeps it up there for a while. Wow, I didn't realize that.
Does.
What are you doing,
Yeah,
Brad?
he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit about what that shield's for.
It's
He's
a sun
trying to keep the
shade.
sun off of him. Yeah, I guess it's umbrella stance.
And he brings it down. Yeah, it really was up there for
Maybe
no
it's
reason.
a demoralizing tactic is like I can take you on without my shield at all. Look, I'll hold the shield behind the back of my head and I'll still take you on.
I will fight in the shade.
We'll fight
Yeah.
on this.
If I was Hector and just getting beaten with a guy holding his shield behind him, I'd be feeling a bit.
But yeah, he like attempted to pierce the shield. Like that's only going to damage his sword. Flash.
Absolutely, that would.
What is what he's holding classified as? Is that a sword?
Yeah. So they're, a classic Greek style sword. Achilles one again is a bit different, more fantasy kind of design, but technically they're a Xiphos by period.
Very cool name for a sword. Can't deny.
Mm-hmm.
This is him.
Thing is though, people think that all Bronze Age weapons were that long. There were ones that were way longer. We're talking like the length of an arming sword, like a knight one-handed sword. There were bronze weapons that big. And so I would like to see a movie showing, an actual bronze sword with a bit of weight and size to them instead of all these short little ones.
Yeah, would you expect a fight with these sort of attributes, so these shields, these swords, this armor, how long do you reckon this would go for?
That's a good question. Shields can really extend the length of a duel because you've got so much protection, and it can be really hard to kind of break through it. I wouldn't go this long. As soon as an opening is there, bang! It can be game over very quickly.
There you go. Hector got a hit in. Close. It's just scraped his armor.
Yep. Now, would that have chopped through the armor if it connected more? In reality, it wouldn't, but in the movie context, they probably would think it would.
Well, interestingly, even according to the movie, it doesn't look like it even actually managed to split.
Just barely a scratch, just an aesthetic scrape.
Well, that would be good if they're showing the armor doing something. I appreciate that.
So this is interesting. Hector goes for what I assume was a sort of thrust, and he gets his arm caught. You can't really see what's happening exactly, but his arm is caught for sure. And then Achilles lifts it up.
Yeah, he's got it in between his arm and his side and has kind of locked it away. Just another thing, these shields that they're holding are way too light for the period. Like hoplons or the aspis, which is the type of shield that is used by the phalanx formations, the hoplites. They are huge, thick things. They are big. They're so big that they were made with such a lip that you could rest them on your shoulder almost. And they generally weren't center grip like what we're seeing here either. The center portion looped over the joint in your elbow, and then you would have something that you held onto the edge, and they were usually like they were lined with a rope kind of formation on the edges that you held with your hand. And so just the inaccuracies in the shield, just pointing out.
Yeah. And I was going to say, because these shields, look at them. Thick, heavy, surely. It's like, it's got to be a pain to carry these around, especially blocking hits with them. And then from this age, yeah, you just fully expect this would be it would be helpful, but it would tire you out quickly, surely.
Well, the way that their weight and hand configuration makes them far more like the Viking-style shields of, very early medieval period and the migration period and stuff. They're called the skjolder. And so, they're more Viking-like than Greek-like, these shields, in my opinion. Except for the designs on the front.
Yeah, and there was a rock there, unfortunately for Hector.
Oh, his downfall.
Yeah, and I think it's supposed to be sort of the turning point.
By a rock.
I always found, even when I was, like, because I saw this when I was young, obviously 2004, that means I was 11 when this came out, even I was like, oh, there's a rock, really? It's like he couldn't have just lost in general, why did it have to be a rock? Yeah, it looks like he's sort of abandoned the shield here as well.
Yeah, but why?
I'm not sure why, actually, and then Achilles just throws his shield away as well. Oh, he goes,
like,
he's changing up his secondary item, he's going for the broken spear. And in fairness, I think Achilles does the same thing as well. Oof.
Stuck with the shield.
What is the attire on the lower end of these two? What would you call that?
What, the greaves or
the dress, the skirt. What would you call it?
Oh,
I I'm assuming there's a better name than skirt.
It doesn't look like armor here.
Yeah, you would technically identify it as part of the upper bit of armor, but I actually don't know the name of it. Maybe someone in chat.
People in chat are saying skirt. They might actually be considered skirts then. Yeah, probably light armor on them. I doubt that it was going to stop much. We're at the point of them getting pretty tired as well, and it's only—I think it was only like a 2-minute fight, so it's not too bad in terms of like realism, I suppose. But it's probably gone on a lot longer than it probably would. I imagine. Yeah.
Oh yeah, by far. But again, and I have no problem with that because in a movie that you want to be really engaging and epic, you do want larger fights and stuff.
Yeah. Got man dress and leg curtains. That could be it, right?
Man dress, sure.
Armored kilt.
Yeah, sort of this is like wild swinging. That's
it's just gone. Yeah, this is just wild. No form. Just trying to hit, telegraphing every strike.
Close to. Oh yeah, I was gonna say this is close to where he dies, I guess. Oh yeah, there you go. So that was odd.
Disarm.
The way Achilles spins around almost twice to get the hit in there. If I just go back, odd choice. I always felt like couldn't he just got him on the first one? So stab.
If he missed that, or are they feints maybe? But he does leave his back open when he spins around.
Yeah.
Spinning is a complicated thing, even in historical things, because there are cases where spinning attacks were used. Even whole systems developed around spinning, like with great swords, where you just keep spinning the sword around to keep your opponent at bay. But then there are really bad types of spins where you leave your back open.
So
right through the armor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would that broken spear be able to do that?
Nah.
Could it depend on possibly what it is that this armor is? What if it's made of?
I mean, if it's made of, if it's a prop,
bronze.
If it's a prop,
bronze head. If it's bronze head against bronze armor, I don't really see it piercing it. No. If it was lighter armor, like cloth or even some type of leather, there's a better chance that it could get through. But not like this.
Yeah, the more you look at it, the more you realize armor is worthless in movies and TV shows, isn't it?
It really is. See, look at this, right
through the center as well.
Yep.
Looked like there was a sort of I don't know what you call it, but like a bump of like more solid piece of armor as well, like especially solid.
Can you imagine if they had this in the movie where Achilles, he goes into this big lunge and he just hits, and it doesn't go through. It's like, oh
yeah, they just pushes Hector over.
Let me try that again. It's not going through. Look, I'll just cut your throat. Stay still. Thanks.
Yeah, would it? So the best we could probably imagine is a dent, right? It would dent the armor.
Yeah.
At most.
Odd-shaped hole.
Piercing it is rare for something like this, I'd imagine. And well, the hole looks like
almost impossible. And with the bronze, it'll be impossible. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the typically looked at as better fight. What do you think as a whole?
Well, I mean, it looked great, right? It's unrealistic in the style of fighting that they're using, and that the weapons are in reality too cumbersome to use as spears like they do, and it becomes a bit wild swings and stuff towards the end with the swords and everything. But the thing is, people did fight without form historically, who just gave everything up and just tried to hit as hard as they could. So it's not necessarily unrealistic, but overall, it's a great fight scene. It just looks cool.
I was going to say,
but there were some interesting things in it.
I love the delivery of the whole thing. And so a lot of people have been requesting. This is typically looked at as one of the best Game of Thrones fights. This is in season 1. And it's funnily enough.
Oh yeah, I know this one.
It's quite a casual fight. Like it comes out of nowhere almost. It's kind of like, oh, this is a fight we're having now. So the quality's not fantastic. I'll see if I can find a slightly better one quick. I think I'm going to be unlucky on that regard. But yeah, the idea being that it's a sellsword with very limited armor against what you can imagine is a full knight of armor sort of setup with. I think he has a kite shield as well, and I know that you have a fondness for kite shields.
Oh, kite shields are the best. Love kite.
Well, let's see if... hopefully this is clear enough, regardless, so... I should probably draw it back, actually.
And so this is an interesting situation where you have someone who is completely outmatched in terms of arms and weapons. But what's clearly good about this is that you can still win. Like there's always, if you're smarter, if you fight, in a more kind of defensive way, and you're just more skillful, there's always a chance that you can beat someone who has better weapons.
David versus Goliath sort of ideology here. Like there's a weak spot, go for it, you'll win eventually. Because there's an element of tiring him out as well in this fight, not just weakening him.
Alright, let's see if the guy with the shield... what I can't stand is... See what he did there? When someone strikes with a shield, right, they swing their shield completely out of the way, so much to the point where the shield is behind them.
Yeah.
You don't do that!
You just jab forward with it on the edge.
Slash down.
Keep it in front of you.
Like, I've got a big kite shield, right? And I've done sparring with it. And funnily enough, one of the best tactics you can do with it is you just hold the shield out as far as you can in front of you, run forward, ram it into your opponent, and just stab over it from overhead or underneath on the side. And it's so hard for people to defend against it. And so, it's not too complex to get the advantage out of a good-sized kite shield. But his swing, see, he was not even holding it forward.
He's doing a lot of wild swings considering his advantage of being a sort of solitary target. Like, he's like a walking tank almost, and he's choosing to sort of rush and swing. And this is supposed to be the best knight in the Vale, I believe, Ser Vardis, something like that. But you could argue that he's doing it because he's trying to get it done quick. Like, this guy's not got a chance.
And I mean, Bronn is fighting in the right way, defensively. He's keeping, and because one of the great tactics that you actually don't see employed a lot in movies and everything is tiring out your opponent, especially if they're wearing armor. If you can just make them exhausted, their fighting capacity can be halved. Like, I know this from real life, right? My actual ability and how well I fight from when I'm fresh compared to when I'm exhausted, like, I fight nearly at almost, not even a third of my full ability. So it's reduced more by, like, over half when I'm exhausted.
And yeah, I think you can see that throughout this fight here. He's doing so many big, wide swings and missing. And even hitting these pillars is going to cost him a lot, because it'll just be a shock back to his own hand, right?
And it'll damage your sword, too.
Yeah, that too. And threw some innocent civilian at him. How could you?
You're not going to stab this guy. Again, moving the shield out of the way. Almost in each, like, this is clearly someone they do not know how to fight with a shield. Because every strike, he is swinging that shield away.
Still hasn't actually hit him yet as well, back or anything. This whole time he's just been on the defensive.
Yep. And that's a viable, good way to fight it. Slash under the arm.
Yeah, got him right.
That's great.
On the armpit.
Ow.
Of course, this is Tyrion's life is at stake, so I think it's fair for him to be happy about it.
Exactly. And see, I like how he raised his
finish
helmet.
him. It's that easy.
Like, helmets are so crucial, right? But I think people would be surprised how restrictive the breathing can feel when you're wearing a big one like that. Though the eye slit is huge on that thing.
I was gonna say.
You can't even call it an eye slit. It's more like an eye hole. It's like it's a window.
Eye window, yeah.
Eye window.
Eye hole. Big swing miss, but these ones are a little bit better because they're upward and downwards, so the shield stays in front.
Check out which angle his shield is facing there.
Oh yeah, that was well, yeah. Ooh, behind the leg.
Behind the knee. And that's an opening on armor usually, and so
yeah, and so at that point you've lost probably the ability to stand, potentially.
Yep.
At that point I'm like, all right, I give up.
Yeah, they would surrender. The guy, he should know it's gone now, but I mean, if he particularly wants to protect his honor.
Well, he chose to charge at him, and I think the fight's over now. Even kicked the shield away. Not that the shield was particularly useful to this man. I think it was
tiring him out
more
faster.
of a hindrance.
Like, no, keep holding on to it.
Yeah. Though, that guy's armor has all these weird bumps on it and stuff. Those are like solid hunks of metal.
That's for heating.
It looks cool, really? That's why.
You might want to tenderize meat with it.
Yeah. And yeah, waiting for a sort of thumbs up, thumbs down moment, but doesn't matter, it's a fight to the death, so... And, yeah, to the dismay of all the characters here, because everyone wants him to lose, but the shock is that the faster, nimble, careful fighter manages to prevail.
Yep. Oh, right through the opening.
And that went down far, too.
Yeah.
You gotta love that.
Yep.
Beautiful.
And the waterfall.
Yeah.
The waterfall.
If you hit an artery, it can pour out pretty fast, right? But probably not to that degree.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen it in real life to be able to comment.
We need a doctor in here, guys.
I'm not actually sure. Blood can really get really messy.
Especially when it's to the head, because everything is pumping towards there, so...
Yeah.
But yeah,
now, doesn't she comment? She says, like, you, sir, fight without honor here?
Yeah, and he says, yeah, I know, but he did. Like, he fought with honor and now he's dead.
The thing is, though, right? The only dishonorable thing, really, in that fight was maybe throwing an innocent bystander in the way. But in terms of the tactics, if that fight was real, everyone would be saying, well fought.
Oh,
you know,
Johnny Good.
Yeah, like,
excellent work.
You know, got him right behind the knee. Good like, shot.
Oh,
like, that's not a dirty thing.
I give up.
Like, the way he was fighting wasn't really dirty or dishonorable. It was tactical, reserved.
No, you're supposed to let him hit you with the sword.
Yeah. And so the style of fighting wasn't dishonorable. They're throwing the innocent person away. That was. But...
that was a bit cruel, but I mean, the thing is, it's not a very good makeshift battlefield if you're going to shove random civilians in there, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, the referee's part of the field, man.
So this is Barristan Selmy is one of the character favorites a lot of people have that were wasted for Game of Thrones, part of why I hate Season 5. But the idea here is you've got one of the best knights in the Seven Kingdoms without his armor against what are essentially like street thugs with knives in an alleyway. So this will be interesting to see just how...
Yeah, like, in reality, I'm trying to weigh up the odds. Like, honestly... being outnumbered is so, it's so hard to fight against multiple opponents and stuff, especially, like, this number. And so, if this was in reality and someone's doing that, he's got balls, is like, my goodness.
Oh, he's trying to save a friend, is why he's going for this. But yeah, the problem is, obviously, that you after your first strike, you're vulnerable, basically, to everyone else, right?
Yeah. Exactly. This is where you'd want a really big sword and do wide sweeping strikes to threaten as many of the opponents as possible. This is where the greatsword comes into its own, and why some of the techniques were focused around spinning attacks, where you're just spinning this sword 360 around you, and no one is going to get near it, because if you get near that,
you're not going to block it with your dagger.
No,
like, because the greatsword has so much more heft and mass to it. There's nowhere near heavier than people think. It's actually, if you held a greatsword, you'd be like surprised at how light it is, but it still definitely has enough meat behind the strike to do some damage. So yeah.
And yeah, so they added this pretty carefully to try and avoid how it looks like he's surviving this. But picking up a meat shield is probably pretty clever in this scenario, I'd imagine.
Yep. Good on him. Tactical. Taking out a few, and they're being very accommodating by standing to the side.
Two on the right, they're just sort of allowing this to take place.
Yeah, that was very, very nice of them. Ooh,
and you see, got four on his back there that were just waiting their turn, which is always something that's very annoying in movies and TV shows, where they seem to be lining up, and you're like, no, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
You're in play. Go.
I quite like that strike, though, where he just slits it up.
Wait, is this the Unsullied guy?
No, this is, his name is Barristan. Or Barristan Selmy.
I mean the guy with the spear.
Oh, yeah, he was, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Thought I recognized him.
Yeah, they're sort of getting little hits on him toward the end of this fight, and it's,
Yeah. Finally, someone getting him from behind when he's open.
Yeah, this is the thing, is sort of death by 1,000 cuts reduced to a degree, but so it's annoying to see, because it's like, oh yeah, the guy with like the most fame and infamy killed by a bunch of random assholes with daggers. You're like, cool.
Yeah. And I mean, if he was like super skilled, there was a way he could win, not the way he was fighting. He let people get behind him, and that's what I was saying with the other fight where the super swordsman guy. You always move around, so you position as many, like technically everyone, if you can, in front of you on one side. And if they start to loop around and walk around, you try and then counter that by your own movement. It'd be more difficult with a confined space like this, which is why I probably should have fought them at the door or something. If let them approach him.
Yeah, try and bottleneck them. So actually force them into a one-on-one at a time, instead of the show allowing for that to happen naturally somehow.
Just walking into the middle of the group. It's like...
Yeah, and then this one, I'm really hoping this works. I'm pretty sure it will, because apparently it was done with Bandicam, but... So there's this portion of season, I think it's 5, it could be 6 actually, where they open the fighting pits, and the idea here is that anyone can sort of be submitted via being a slave or to go themselves to prove a point, I guess. And what we've got...
That necklace looks very uncomfortable.
Yeah, that looks like it would totally stab you, but hey, style. So if we get like a wide shot here, we got Jorah, who's obviously your knight for this sort of thing. Waiting for them to give us a shot.
Yeah, I was just trying to check out his armor there. Is that supposed to be metal that's blackened? Kind of looks like it.
Yeah. Oh, so here's a good shot, right? So we got Jorah is furthest right. Then you've got, I think, the guy with like an axe. He's Bravosi in this.
I don't have the same shot as you. I'm looking at. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is sort of have holes in it.
Who's?
The
Doors?
guy with the buckler thingy in the middle of the shirt.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. I guess we'll find out in better shots.
Is that a thing, Shad?
Not historically.
I'm not sure that's what it is. I guess we'll find out, but...
No,
I can't tell. We'll see.
Like, got holes
also, interestingly, I think his weapon...
Wait. I do know of a sword with holes in it. The Executioner sword.
I was about
it's
to
one
say,
of the only ones. Yeah, at the tip, there are 3 holes in a triangle kind of arrangement. And no one really knows why they're there. But it's a common thing amongst these Executioner swords. Some believe it, it's so that the sword, when swung, will make a certain sound. And people say that could be for intimidation, or so it can't be used as a weapon because you can't sneak or get from people from behind. Some others say that tassels were hung from these things. Others to say that the tip couldn't be sharpened again, so it wouldn't be turned into a weapon. They could use it in an actual fight. So we really don't know. So it's kind of interesting.
Like, did you see the sword here?
Yeah, it's got holes down the middle. Is that the one we're looking at?
Yeah, but it's also cut in the same way that an Executioner sword was. Like an end that was not pointed. Which I find quite interesting.
But then you would want that extra weight if all you can do is slash.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the practicality of his sword is.
You can get that weight back just by the thickness, so it kind of depends. And it's funny, you could get a weapon that has just as much cleaving capacity and put a point on it. Look at some of the falchions, the cleaver-style falchions. They did exactly that.
It's like, why not have a pointy end?
Like, check out... I need to get... All right, so check out these pictures of the falchions. I'll just link it to you.
No.
They're basically a huge cleaver in some of them, and then they've just stuck on a big spiky point to the end, just so they still get the thrusting capacity. So,
I was like, why not have it?
Exactly. Like, it's not going to add any more real, weight to the weapon. That's going to be a bother.
You want to poke people with it.
Exactly. So there's a link to the Elmsley typology. Not sure if you'll be able to bring that up to the chat or not, but if you have a look at the 1D or type 1D or type 2 falchions, and have a look, they're just like these big cleaver things with a spike on the end.
Yeah, spikes are good. We like spikes.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot. And I feel like that would throw off an opponent as well. They'd be like, whoa, what is this creepy spike you've got? Yeah, that's...
A machete with a pointy bit.
So very rare to not have some form of a edge to the end.
Yeah, I mean,
the reach
Now,
of
they
it.
did exist. Like, have a look at the Type 1B and Type 1C. Those are examples. But more often than not, if you can have a point on it, you'll chuck a point on it.
Why does the 1C have that odd?
No one
piece out of
knows.
it?
It's
No
this
one knows.
obscure. It's depicted in the Masajowski Bible. It's this weird picture of this cleavy kind of falchion with this weird clip on the back edge, and we have no idea. It's like it could be that it never actually existed, and the artist just was off his rocker when he was
Fucked up,
doing the
yeah.
painting. But it's there, and people have made reproductions of it, so it's included for just acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just going back to the thing, you got standard knight sort of outfit. The next guy's got, is that a poleaxe or something? I really don't know my weaponry names enough.
Bardish or Bardiget, depending on how you like to pronounce it. I can't really see it with because it's paused at a different frame, and so it's
help. I don't know. We'll probably go through it better once we get into the actual fights. But then you've got guy with
that sword does have a lot of holes in it. I can see it better now.
That's strange.
You got
Maybe
guy
it's
with
like a
rapier as furthest left, guy with sword and weird holy sword. Basically a whole, the point was it was just a big variety and then they're all going to face off with each other, but there's a couple things wrong with this, even from a layman's perspective, with how this fight runs, but it might be interesting just to look at how they sort of fight. And I'm definitely going to ask you about the benefits of being sort of like a light swordsman with a rapier versus plate armor.
Alrighty, because there is some interesting elements to consider there.
Yeah, so first we can
his
get
breastplate is it comes down too low. It would be so hard for him to like twist his hips on either side. You can even see that he's stiff in his torso when he leans from one side to the other because of that breastplate.
Mm-hmm.
It goes too far low before the join to the fold. Okay, yeah, that looks like a Bardish. What is fighting there?
Yeah, then you got the other fights that are going on at the same time, so not much they show of them, but...
Oh, actually, I got a better look at the blade. The blade is a more fancy kind of version, but if you had to classify it, I'd call it a Bardish.
That,
Ooh, in the ground. Sorry, that it makes me cringe because that's a great way to blunt your sword. You never stab a sword into the ground.
It almost felt like watching it, I was like, it feels such a video game thing. Like, it reminds me of Link, one of his, like, his moves.
Hi-ya! And then he jumps forward and stabs. But
well, like, down B on Super Smash Brothers, he'll like jump and then you'll put the sword below him and basically plow it into the ground no matter where he's going. It'll do a lot of damage, but again, video game, like, it feels like when I see Jor do that, I'm like, what are you doing, man?
I think down B is bomb. I think that's his regular just downward aerial attack as he just sticks it downward, and it's cheap as shit.
No, down B's bomb when you're standing. It's once you're in air, and you do it. At least I
still think down B in the air is pull out a bomb.
You could be right on that. What am I thinking of?
I think you're thinking of, it's the same attack, but it's his aerial down A attack, I think.
Oh,
he just holds his sword downward.
It could be down A, yeah, you could be right.
Maybe chat can down air, Rags is right. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Shows how I haven't played Smash in so long.
I haven't played it in ages, but I remember how cheap that sticking the sword down is.
It was amazing. It would get you like insta kills if their health is I say high enough, you know what I mean?
Down B is down spiral. Well, I'm thinking of melee, I think. So when I say this stuff, I'm talking about melee.
I think you're right with I'm pretty sure in that game it was a bomb as well. We should play it. But yeah, either way, yeah, it seemed like more of a style move than practicality. Just seemed out the window with that one.
So how did that knock him off his feet? Unless he was leaning on the sword so much that it actually supported a decent amount of his weight, and then when he knocked the sword out underneath him, he got knocked over.
He definitely stabs it. The guy hits the sword. Yeah, just like
he kind of jumps away with it. It was
maybe that's what he was going for. He was like, "Whoa, better get out of danger," and then so he deflects the thing, knocks it out of the guy's hand. Yeah, nice tussle. And then obviously with this skipping to the end of this other fight where this other guy is just straight up stabbed.
Yeah, that would kill someone.
Yep,
I think that would hurt. Pretty sure.
And then, considering the guy looks to have barely any armor at all.
I think he's about to get stabbed.
Yes.
Look at that.
And yeah, so the part that always, and again, talking about layman perspective, right? So you saw that knife just saved him in this fight, right?
Yeah.
Check out what he does with the knife.
Why not have a knife? It's so tiny and helpful. And
especially one that's sheathed in like your ankle. It can come in handy when you're in awkward position.
Yeah, you advance on someone thinking they're unarmed, and then like knife.
And they like kneeling. Yeah, so obviously Jorah's going to want to pick up his sword and perhaps sheathe the dagger ready for when he needs it again. But nope, he throws it away. Why in the world would you do that when it just saved your life? It's such a bizarre choice.
That's a very good question.
Wait, are there not like teams here? Is it just everyone's?
It's literally like a free-for-all, which makes you wonder, like, how does there not... Well, I say it makes you wonder how there wouldn't be cheating, but there is cheating, so it's all good.
So this is arming sword versus rapier. What the hell is he doing?
It's obvious.
It's stylish.
It's the swallowtail technique. It's well documented in all of the treatises.
I love that was your reaction to that. It's such nonsense. You're like, whoa, what are you doing, buddy?
Imagine fight this guy, like, what are you doing?
It's just, there are flourishes you can do. That's not one of them. It didn't look good. It just looked weird and awkward. That's not a rapier. That's like a small sword.
I have no idea.
That's tiny.
Oh, do you mean tiny as in like length or thickness?
No. There's a type of sword called a small sword. And they were popular. Like, they became popular as a type of dueling in the 1700s. And
I don't think that's breastplate, because look, it's stitched.
Look at the way it bends.
Yeah, like go back but right before he makes the slash. I think it's stitched. I think you can see stitching. Are those rivets or stitches?
I think they're supposed to be rivets.
Yeah.
The quality's a little
it's tough to see.
I guess. Yeah, it is rivets. It looked like stitches when it was in motion.
So I was going to give the edge to the rapier, but he's actually not using a rapier. He's using a small sword, which is very out of period for something based around the medieval times. And if that makes it far more equivalent. The thing is, though, small swords are fast. They're crazy fast because rapiers aren't light. People make the mistake that rapiers are light. They're not. They're as heavy as an arming sword. The weight distribution is different. Small swords are light, though. They are like surprisingly light, sometimes half a kilo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they can be fast as anything. And so it's a far more equal matchup in this sense. Because the other thing about them having such a small, thin blade is they don't have much blade presence. And so if Jorah, if he wanted, he could smack that small sword blade and knock it aside really easily. It's very hard for you to resist strikes because there's so little weight there. And so because of that, it makes it far more equivalent. If the guy had a proper rapier, he would have the edge. And when it comes to one-on-one duels, rapiers are one of the most devastating swords that you can use by far.
And so, like, for continuity here, it's very confusing. Jorah strikes, he gets hit in the leg, and then it cuts to Jorah's just fine. And then he gets stabbed by a thrust. There's a couple of things. Like, first of all, what happened to that leg strike? I guess
it's fine.
I guess he hit him with the flat of it, maybe?
His pants had more protective value than his armor.
And Jorah clearly reacted to it, like, ow, you know, that sort of thing. And then we cut to him being fine. It's always weird like that, because I'm just like, how does that happen in the editing process?
Well, the other thing is, like, small swords can't, like, they can cut with, like, little slices, but they're not going to penetrate deep or slice off limbs, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. They're not going to cut through thick armor and everything. And so maybe he was reacting out of shock. I got hit. Oh, wait, it did nothing.
It could be.
Yep, psych.
And so this... thrust then that comes up. I feel like it would bend his sword before it would do that.
Yeah.
Like if that was a proper, steel breastplate, it's not getting through. Not a chance.
And so you would put the odds on the actual the knight in this case, would you?
Ooh. With the armor, yes. If you didn't have the armor, it would be far more equivalent. Wow, that guy's sword almost looked falchion-like with the top.
Yeah, I was going to say, it kind of did. Can't seem to get a good shot of it, really, but... These horrible people celebrating death, how could they? Dare they? It's good when we do it because it's all fictional. And yeah, so these quick strikes where you're trying to block and attack, I feel like the Bravosi dude is going to have a way better time.
Well, in reality, he would have far more blade presence than the other guy. And so, technically, if he really wanted, he could just try and do a really powerful strike, let the guy try and block, but there's a chance that he could break the guy's guard and just knock the sword down with his strike and still hit him regardless. So he does not want to do a static block with such a thin blade like that. He would only want to try and do parries that knock aside. But we saw a lot of static blocks in the exchange just before, and he would have a big disadvantage in that with a sword like what he's using.
So, it's over, for sure. And, it's weird because he looks to the queen as if, like, she's gonna have to vote on it or something, and then it's implied. But you just think, like, why isn't he killing him? Why isn't he killing him? Be killing him.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Like, I bet he's wishing he had a dagger right now.
Yeah, Dagger would be potentially life-saving. Crazy, that.
The guy wasn't even looking at him before.
And so I found... Look at the stance he took there. He was gonna, like, full-on link down A him with the two hands on the sword, and I guess... Instead of just going for a quick thrust into his neck with the sword,
right
which you'd think...
Neck, yep. Something else Jorah could have done is grabbed the guy's blade. That would have kept it at bay.
Or, I mean, the second he goes up... Jorah could literally have tried to tackle him, like get up really quickly and just try and go for him. A lot of things to try, but yeah, he got backstabbed.
And then, is that guy supposed to kill him?
Well, this is the thing, it seems unfair, doesn't it?
They're more like guidelines.
Yeah, well, so the implication here is that Man with Spear was like, okay, I'll knock out the tough-to-defeat opponent by stabbing him in the back, and I'll let this old dude get up, so I can fight him and get a glorious victory, sort of thing.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe he thought he wasn't very good based on the...
Yeah, and I say that's the best headcanon you're gonna get, I think.
I mean, that seems reasonable based on what we've seen. You might think, oh, this old guy.
Yeah, like, he was just about to die, so he's probably not that good. And so, what are the odds with this one? Because the opponent here with the armor looks like...
He came in swinging it... Yeah, he came in swinging it with one hand, which is just dumb. No, it's a spear. Use it with two hands. And then he's trying to bludgeon him with hitting him on the side. And see, like, he technically tried to hit him on the side and it did nothing, and then Jorah was able to grab it because what he was doing was dumb. You thrust with a spear. You don't try and whack people with it. So... Wow, he could have pulled his sword back in a reverse cut and slashed him under his arm there. It was like position. The sword was there. Yeah. It was already touching the guy's underarm, and he was like, just cut him.
There's a lot of potential for that there, because it does look like he's locked it almost in the position he needs it.
His arm was raised, and it was open, and it was just cloth there. His sword was sitting there, and he could have slashed him under the armpit.
That was a good grab, but it probably wouldn't have done much against his plate, right? Especially if he'd grabbed it. It would have reduced the force.
Well, armor works now.
Yeah.
What was that? Oh, see, armor doesn't work anymore.
Right through both.
I don't know. What is that he's wearing? It looks like almost like it's got holes in it.
You guys managed
to... What is that he's wearing? Yeah, it's got like holes in it. Like it's porous.
I see what you mean, yeah. Which would explain how he gets the sword through rags. Absolutely.
I'm because I got it open on YouTube because I want to see. Yeah, it's a very odd looking.
He looks like he sort of just walks the sword into him.
Yeah.
There's not even much force.
I mean, he rolled forward to do a thrust. I mean, the guy with the spear, all he needed to do was just thrust him when he was on the ground with no guard.
Yeah.
Just stab. I do not want to do somersault in front of an opponent.
And so at this point, you have to ask, like, they have, like, choreographers and armor/medieval experts, don't they? Like, it wouldn't be too much of an ask, would it?
Maybe they stopped paying the people they hired in the earlier seasons and thought, we could do this. We saw how they did it. We can do it.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because you'd imagine, like, would they be that expensive? Do you know? Like, I wouldn't have thought.
I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of people who would honestly do it for free almost, or they'd have to be paid very minimally, like me, or Matt Easton from Schola Gladiatoria. Like, and he would be better. He's like he teaches this stuff and has done it for years. Get him on board. All the guys the video we watched, the people. Adoria. People, get there, man. Gosh.
Got a lot of people in chat have mentioned the Deluge duel. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
I do not as well.
know either.
Well, let's give it a shot, see what we're dealing with here, because I actually have literally no idea.
Oh, this looks like it's from the Duelist, is it?
Oh, is that it? Could be.
It might be.
From not wasting time here.
Duel.
Well, here, let me use the loo.
I think I've seen this one. It's a saber.
Oh yeah, they have been saying it's a saber battle. Oh yeah, okay, I'll draw it back a bit, make sure we don't miss any of the context.
Guard position.
And
it's funny. It doesn't take much. Like, just having a proper guard position improves a fight scene so much.
And you stand side face to make sure you limit the amount of places they can attack, right?
Exactly.
Do you know, I actually know that from Game of Thrones. It's a very basic thing, but it's in season 1 again, they say that. So, you're like, what happened? What happened, Game of Thrones?
Especially with if you're using a one-handed sword. But if you're using like a secondary thing or like a second weapon or using a two-handed weapon, your chest does need to be a bit more presented just so you can hold it right. But it's always going to be on an angle, usually. Yeah, so some basic exchanges. They looked fine. And then presenting the tip, keeping your opponent at bay. There's the guy on the right has got a very formal stance.
This is from Fiddler on the Roof.
Cool. I have no idea.
I just watched Fiddler on the Roof. It had no sword fights in it.
Yeah, it absolutely did. This was the part near the middle. Yeah, where everyone stood around with their swords and they're in the village, and then the top Jews fought for the position of head Jew.
Really? Because I watched the musical. This is clearly not the musical I watched.
No, this is the musical. Yeah. They're in between songs.
Question. That stance he's got right there. Could he not thrust and potentially kill?
Yeah, like if he... Well, yes and no. I mean, like, if he angled it to the point where he could keep his opponent's sword at bay and hold a guard position, yes, absolutely. If he did it wrong and he went forward with a thrust and his head and keeping his head exposed, the guy's sword is in a position to do a very solid strike to the side of his head.
I was actually going to say, yeah, all his opponent needs to do there is sidestep, and then he gets a perfect opening, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you always have to balance up what your opponent can do to counter and things. So
risk reward.
Exactly.
These sounds are not good enough. You need swing, swing, swing.
Yeah.
How to improve your fight.
So yeah, if you lunge forward quickly, but I guess they're just... Oh, I like what he did there.
Is this sort of like he's baiting him to take the shot?
Yeah, well, he's not then capitalizing on it, right? If you get someone to try and engage your blade and you just move your blade out of the way so it misses completely, that generally leaves your opponent open. And then if you follow that up with a thrust or something, it's a great move and stuff. And so just looping it out of the way, I've done that before. It's a wonderful technique. It's good to see him doing it, but he's not capitalizing on it. Because when that guy swings down, he's open once the sword misses.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's a bold one.
Okay, so that was interesting. What they were doing there was a more Hollywood kind of choreography where they repeat the same move in repeated succession just so they have the movement on camera and it looks kind of engaging and stuff. I'm not an expert with saber fencing, and I do know there's a lot more kind of... blocks and repetition on type of moves with saber fencing. Don't quote me on that. Like I said, I'm not an expert. But to the extent that we saw there, that was for the choreography.
I'm guessing that's some form of a taunt in a way.
It was supposed to be a flourish. It was not a good one.
Wait, what is that for exactly?
Showing off. Like, flourishes have a couple of important things. They help develop proficiency and comfort with the sword. So proficiency is your ability to use it and kind of know where the blade is without looking at it, so you can move it and manipulate it without hitting yourself. And so practicing flourishing really helps out with that. And it looks really good as well. And so it's a great way for intimidating your opponent and showing competency with the blade and proficiency, like I said. And so people who say that flourishes are useless and you should never learn them, no. They're useless in the sense of actually trying to use them in the fight, but for other things, no. They're like, flourishing has some important roles to play. But what he was doing was a very...
look at my sword, it spins.
It's just...
Maybe if the light reflects, you might be able to...
helicopter.
Attack the opponent. Yeah, it could work.
See how fast I can move my sword?
You swing that like a flail, sir. That's insulting.
Oh, well, I never.
Considering how much I dislike flails, I would be greatly insulted.
How dare you? The flail is amazing. It's much better than... I saw your video, I'm sorry. I agree with you. The camera was awfully tight on some of those shots to the point where I'm like, I can't even tell what exactly is happening, but there we are.
Yeah, but the guy on the left is keeping a fairly solid stance and is usually ending in a guard position from each position. And so that's good. And so you'll know what I was noticing there is, like, after an engagement or a strike is usually moving from guard position to guard position to guard position. And that is solid form. So that was good to see. The other guy's a bit more flailing. And that was a very telegraphed strike. And then a disarm. So they're doing they're showing in a very effective way that one opponent is easily more skilled than the other. The other guy had less form, less, structure in what he was doing. And, the guy on the left, it was, holding a good stance. And so that's good. It's actually a good fight for what they're trying to show.
You're doing the honourable thing again? Got your sword? It does feel a bit, You defeat someone who didn't have a sword, you don't feel great about it. But if you did disarm them...
Funny.
Yeah, that's the whole point of disarming them.
If you disarm them and then followed that up with a strike right away, I don't think anyone would say, well, that was dishonorable. It's like, no, you got him open.
But if you disarm them and they back away, then you're like, oh, now you're going to make me look like the asshole.
Exactly. Now I'll look bad if I hit you. Go pick it up.
You see how fast I move my sword?
Come on, do some more flippy flaps.
This was the sword I moved quickly. You might not have seen it the first time.
He looks very unimpressed in this stance.
He does.
Well, here we go.
Taunt.
Yeah, obviously, chat, none of us have any idea who these characters are or what's happening here, so we got no context to explain anything that might be additional interesting information. Just the fight itself.
This is the Council of Rivendell.
Yes,
Everyone's standing with their cloaks and their swords.
This is Elrond and Frodo.
On the Fellowship.
I sound a suspect there, Rags. I don't trust you.
That's correct, because we've established this is from Fiddler on the Roof.
Clearly.
Wide swings, very open.
That was a feint, right?
Yeah, I missed it a bit. I got distracted by thinking of Fiddler on the Roof. Thanks, Rags. He spun us. Sorry, they're telegraphing on the other guy.
He looks like he's a little desperate.
As a few people have pointed out in chat as well, there's a lot of, and this isn't just with this fight, it's a lot of fights in general, that it's almost like they're aiming to hit the swords as opposed to each other.
Yeah.
Which helps for the visual of it, I guess.
Yeah. That's one of the first things you need to learn what to do when you're learning sword fighting is distance and timing and figuring out how to strike and move forward in such a way that your sword is in range of actually hitting the opponent. Because when people first pick up swords, they're too hesitant to do that. And they just start hitting swords instead of aiming for the opponent. It's a clear sign of a noob. Whoa, wide telegraph swings. The guys all... Yeah, so look, this is a good fight scene, actually. Because the sloppy sword fighting on one side is clearly intentional because the other guy is fighting really well.
He's very composed.
Now, if he just turned his sword a little bit and sliced it sideways, he would take off the guy's fingers. So this is one of the dumb things in like movies. They love crossing the swords and the faces getting close and saying, "You insulted my mother. Shame on you." So
it seems to be the blonde guy is basically saying like, "I know you can beat me, just do it."
Yeah, it's just from someone who's done sword fighting. It's so frustrating to see because whenever there's whenever the swords connect, it's an opportunity to capitalize and do so much. And so when they don't do that and they just hold the swords on, it's frustrating. And now the guys.
Yeah, it looks like he's
that
been
wouldn't
defeated.
kill you.
I was curious what that strike was. It only looked like it would have grazed the top of his head, maybe, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, like it didn't cleft the skull. It just cut him to the skull. But from the look of it, that's not a death blow. Maybe the guy's he's faking.
He's alive.
He hasn't fallen on his back.
Is that how that works? You don't. You fall on your back if you're dead, in front if you're.
It's news
Quick,
to me.
everyone, use your furry hats.
Well,
I have a furry hat.
That guy's pretty darn tall.
That's a tall. That is a tall. Holy shit!
It's a head high, taller than most of the guys around him.
They call me the Fuzzy Mountain.
oh, it was not a slash. It pierced the skull.
Oh, did it?
Perhaps it was like a thrust into the skull. I'm not sure.
Now he's. Oh, you didn't kill him. You just made him autistic.
The tricky thing is, right, the skull is rounded, and if you're going to try and thrust towards the skull, more often than not, the tip will be deflected off, or only penetrate a small amount and get stuck in. Bone is pretty hard, and in reality, it'd be very hard to thrust through the skull with a sword. So you need something pretty powerful. Of course, you get through with
the Jew must fall on his back to die.
Okay, is that how that works?
I don't know.
It was from the film. Yeah. So
I've never seen a Jew die.
Have you seen Oldboy, Shad?
I have not.
So this is a famous battle scene because it's all one take, and the way they shoot it is that one of these walls disappears, so the camera can film it all from one side, and it's generally looked at as one of the best fight scenes ever. Let's roll it back a little bit. Rags would have seen. I don't know if you've seen the movie, Rags, but you've seen YMS's take on it, I assume.
Yeah, I've seen this fight scene, but I haven't seen the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they are doing the accommodating thing so far of going in one at a time, which was, nice of them.
Yeah.
But that's you can't. It's sometimes hard to avoid that fight scene. I get it.
Super difficult with this one because everybody needs to be on point with this to make the scene work. So if you find it's like, oh, I have a chance to actually hurt him here, but I can't do that for the scene, like you'll have awkward moments like that throughout, more than likely.
It is funny though. I do have to admit, when I have seen like fighting where it's multiple people against one person, it is surprising to see how hesitant some people are to try and engage. Like, see how he's fighting one person? Sometimes I've found other people are hesitant to try and rush and hit the opponent for fear that they'll hit the guy that's in the middle of the tussle with them at that very moment. And so they can be a bit hesitant because of that. But the guy did rush him from behind them, so that was good to see that they're ganging up.
And when you get to this point, you're like, how could he possibly win this? It's like, well... perseverance. You do get, when you have a group of people, it does get awkward as to like, a lot of them will just be like, I think someone's hitting him, so I don't need to do anything.
And this is in a small, thin corridor.
Yeah.
So if they're just using sticks, well, he's got the deadlier weapon with a hammer.
Yeah, there's an assortment of weapons here, but mainly seems to be sticks. And then punching and kicking, of course. He's hitting them in the feet with the hammer at that point, which is going to hurt.
There was one guy that just looked like he was leaning on him with his foot. Oh, stabbed through the back.
Yes, he does get stabbed through the back. It almost seems like everyone's like, well, there you go.
Yeah, that's over.
That'll do it.
And you'll notice as well the handle looks a bit dodgy because it's CGI.
I didn't.
You'll see it moving or jittering us a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah.
You know, kudos to them, because that's tough. It's tough to get all that right, especially... I'm not sure when this got released, but hopefully chat can...
Didn't they just use a fake handle?
Ooh,
Yeah,
did he just, like, block that on his hand?
I'm not sure, actually.
Because, you know, that's a solid bit of wood, and that was swung with some pretty, you know, big speed behind it. That would hurt like hell, just taking that on your forearm. Obviously, this guy is a tank.
Oh, no, it looks like it.
Yeah,
he slipped and threw it.
And yes, he is a tank, actually. Like, he's gone through years and years of trading, so it's enough to try and make this as believable as they can. But, yeah, well, the big advantage he has here, obviously, is the narrow corridor, giving him...
Yeah, and he is using that to his advantage. He moved to one side to put them all on one end, and now they're bottlenecked, and he only has to deal with, like, maybe 2 to 3 at a time if they're trying to rush him. And so he's in a much better position than being caught in the middle, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're all
they
like...
had that establishing shot right before this to show that narrow-ness. So
yeah.
See how implied it is.
And they're all getting a little, like, ooh, maybe don't? Maybe don't attack this guy?
They weren't... it's very obvious they're not, like, trained. They're just street thugs.
Yeah,
they don't have any, like, fighting skill. And, you know, they don't want to get hurt themselves.
Exactly. So and they've seen him fight off for so long already. I'd be second-guessing myself.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to start it again.
You guys go and get them. I'll watch.
Yeah, you got this.
You got this, Carl, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the big dude getting in the way of everyone else, really, so it just makes sense. Pick up the stick. Do it.
You're taking off the shirt. It's like intimidation tactic.
They're letting a few fall
It's funny,
behind.
though. People do that in real life. Oh, he took that on.
Yeah, he did block the stick with the arm there, and it broke. That must have hurt.
He's got a knife in him.
He does. You think maybe try and pull it out, use it.
Actually, there's a good idea.
Doing really well with he anticipated a punch from behind him there and actually ducked under it.
Ducked it completely. And I mean, that's for like to show his superhuman skill. Even though he's probably not meant to be portrayed as a superhuman in real life, he's fighting at a superhuman level because good luck fighting like this in real life.
But yeah, now you're at the point where the majority of the people in this thing are just tired. They're just
yeah, that's actually one of the lies I feel can be perpetuated in some martial arts. Not all, but I do feel that some martial arts have this idea that if they just train enough, they can fight like what they, have seen people fight in movies and martial art movies and stuff.
Oh,
and
notice
fighting,
this big guy is grabbing his leg where he got hit by the hammer earlier. So there's a bit of continuity there, where he kicked and then got hit with a hammer on the side. Good stuff.
He just threw that stick.
Missed. You missed.
Like, but is he dead? Not quite.
I think it's just stuck subtitles.
Oh, right, yeah, well. Either way, it's a good title for this whole battle, I think.
Got my hammer.
Careful knocking your back against the wall.
I know, you don't want to lean against it. Just push that knife all the way in.
And yeah, so they remade this film, like an American version, and the fight scene is so much worse. It's painful. Yeah, there you go. You get your nice. That's how narrow.
No, that was a great fight scene.
Well, it's typically looked at as one of the best fight scenes that exist for films, and I think that it deserves that sort of position. Such an amazing feat as well. Typical one shot. They're taking a decent chunk of time to get right.
And the blood comes out. Yeah.
He's not as healthy as possible, but yeah, we get to see elevator full of these dudes.
What would you be thinking? He was like, what?
Yeah, then he just opens it and they all fall out. Bit of movie magic there. I'm not sure how they stayed up, but hey.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
that's a good start. Good one. I like that one.
I saw someone mention it in chat, and I figured why not? It's such a classic. I'm going to assume that you've seen Lord of the Rings.
Oh, of course.
Of course. Rags, have you seen Lord of the Rings?
I have.
My goodness. I know someone who hasn't. He's called Jay. He's the worst.
Disgusting.
Disgusting. But yeah, specifically, Fellowship of the Ring, where good old Mr. Lurtz fights. Let's see if I can find it first. Copyright issues. I will keep the cover up for a second. Oh, do you want to dispel the idea that you should be using a bow if you are a female character because bows require less strength? It's always a standard one you get.
Yeah, I know, and it is cool to see like a strong base character using a tough as bow, you know, and so it's rare, but it's good to see.
Yeah, because people just—it's almost associated now, thanks to media, that it's like, oh, you're a female, you can use a bow. And you're like, why?
give him a long bow. Like I've shot a 80-pound bow, and when you pull it back, wow, you feel it like your and that's not because I haven't conditioned myself to it, of course. And your back muscles just burn. But I could shoot it though. That was my kind of thing that I was like, ah. So it wasn't too difficult, but you could certainly feel it. This is fantasy, but I can give, you know, I can concede to certain elements in fantasy because it is fantasy, and you want, you know, heroes to fight on a level much higher than in reality.
Those stuff, and then yeah, because this fight, it's really gritty suddenly with how they're both sort of they've lost all their primary weapons. Just straight up
through
punching.
The leg, yeah.
We a funny story actually. You know, like show and tell back in school. Good old fashioned show and tell. A friend of mine for show and tell in like year 4 brought in Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and he wanted to play this scene in full. And like several girls in our class got legitimately terrified of Lurtz to the point where the teacher was like, "We can't show this. It's like, he's too scary." And all the guys were like, "Oh my god, please finish it! It's so good."
I don't know. I think we're so soft these days. Have you seen some of those kids' movies that of back in the day, like Watership Down? And all that stuff?
Dude.
Like,
Terrifying stuff.
Look, Johnny Quest, he motherfucking killed people.
Return to Oz. You guys seen that movie?
I can't
terrified
remember.
children everywhere. Come on, chat. Who was terrified by Return to Oz? Fucking wheelers.
Tell you what, like, movies that freaked me out was like Never-Ending Story and Legend, and that's like with a really young Tom Cruise in it.
Oh, Legend? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
But there were parts just that they freaked me out as a kid, you know? Like, I remember like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, right? I love that movie. I love it, right? There's so many corny things in it. I've made 4 dedicated videos ripping it apart for all its inaccuracies.
I love that
but
movie
I still
so much.
love it, right? I watched it when I was pretty young, and the scene where the sheriff runs through Guy of Gisborne, I have vivid memories of me cringing and holding my gut, just like seeing that sword go through his gut.
But yeah, in fairness, when he licks the knife covered in blood, this demonic creature, I can see why people might find it a bit creepy, but my goodness, is it awesome. It's deflected the knife. Is there anything cooler than that? And yeah, in case you guys didn't know, he really deflected a real knife.
I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a prop knife. Turned out it was a real knife, and he actually deflected it. I believe that's the story.
Well, yeah, dude.
Yeah, I mean, how fucking cool is that, though? How cool is that?
Like, broke his foot and all sorts of shit.
Yeah, he chipped his tooth. You know the part where he jumps off the ruin and lands on some other guys? Mm-hmm. He actually chipped his tooth from that stunt, and they had to glue it back on, and he just kept on rolling.
Oh, dude, Viggo Mortensen pulled out all the stops for his role in Aragon. Yeah, and I love this bit. It's just full on attack. And
then, see, that's great. Love it.
And pulls it in. You know, terrifying women everywhere.
And boom. And I like sometimes because he's using such a good, designed longsword that looks so authentic and realistic, and seeing and showing that, good longswords, they can do some serious cuts. It was satisfying to see arm taken off and then a head taken off.
What about the Uruk-hai weapons? What do you think of them?
They're very fantasy, and so in a fantasy setting, they're perfectly fine for the type of warriors the Uruk-hai are.
Ferocious.
Pretty blunt.
Yeah.
They're like one-edged executioner swords, and for what the Uruk-hai are, I think absolutely they
work. They're so stylish that you associate them with who the Uruk-hai are, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's the Uruk-hai weapon.
Yeah. Yep, it's just a sharpened bit of metal. And in reality, you would not want to use a sword like that because it would be so heavy and cumbersome. But the Uruk-hai are stronger than humans. They can handle it, and so it suits them quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to keep you for longer than you're able, because you implied earlier that it might be an hour that you're available, and you've now been here for 3, so...
Might need to leave it there, but I've just been having so much fun that, completely lost
it's good
track
stuff,
of
man. It's always, because this is the thing, we all see these action scenes, we just love the shit out of them, and then we're like, oh fuck, we should probably think about exactly what's going on here, just to ruin it for ourselves. Like,
well, it's funny because like I can actually kind of compartmentalize a bit and put aside it and just try and enjoy a fight scene, especially if it's well choreographed and it just looks nice and is visually interesting. I can still enjoy it. It's just when you really try and break it down, you're like, oh. And sometimes even when I do try and put my critical side away, there are things that are so dumb that it's impossible to ignore, and you're like, what?
Well. For instance, the TLJ big battle sequence, everything is wrong. Just like everything.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how much fun that was for you.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, because I've done a video, I've reviewed Ray's fighting style, and there is a part in, oh, gosh, my goodness, yeah. But the other thing is, like, what's disappointing about it all is that I don't know why Hollywood hasn't caught on to the fact that they can make their fight scenes more accurate and they would look better as a result. And it wouldn't be any harder than these overly elaborate, convoluted choreographed messes that they try and make. And so it's a mystery, and there's people already showing that it can be done, like those, that video we watched where it was done with real historical technique, and it looks so much better. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And this is the thing, I hope we can kind of push for that. It would be cool, because, we've seen a lot of the usual stuff. Maybe it's about time someone focuses on that. And these movies do exist. Someone in chat's going to be like, "Oh, you need to see this. This has already happened."
Well, it's funny.
Like, oh, of course.
I just saw someone say, "Have I ever covered Rob Roy?" I haven't covered it in a video, but I've watched it, and the Rob Roy fight scene at the end is great. That's another really.
Oh, there you go.
Scene.
If you guessed again in future, we shall put that one and TLJ on the list. I think people are going to want to see you maybe talk about some things of that. So I'll make a note. Rob Roy. I think Kingdom of Heaven was mentioned a whole bunch as well, and
yeah, that's actually, that has some interesting elements in that. There's a big fight scene where he takes on a couple of armored knights, and there's actually some good parts in that one, in the Kingdom of Heaven one.
And there's a beginning fight too, where you've got Liam Neeson's in it.
It's true.
But all right, we'll have to save that for another time then.
We'll do it.
Man. It has been fantastic to have you. Do you want to talk to my audience a bit about why they should subscribe to you, and I'll pop your link in chat so they can all rush over.
Because I can be a bit spastic with my over-enthusiasm. It's fun.
That's just
there's an endorsement. It's just I'm a nerdy guy who likes nerdy things, and with an over-obsession with swords, weapons, armor, and stuff. And so I love to break things down, see how they could have been applied better in fantasy, but also to share when things are done right as well. And so it's kind of like a splicing between medieval weapons and armor and pop culture and things. That's kind of what I do. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you'll enjoy my content.
Yep, I'm very much subscribed and enjoying stuff. If you guys just search for Shad and then a keyword of any sort, and you should probably find something that you'll find interesting. I mean, a good starter might be for them to check out your Thanos dual sword video. Get started, check out a bunch of stuff. The first video I saw from you, funnily enough, was the one where you're testing out the 3D printed armor and swords, which they went well, didn't they?
What was your impression of that one?
Well, the funny thing is, I think that's when I first started to take armor much more seriously. I was like, oh wow, even the 3D printed armor actually manages to block a couple of things here. It's just
a katana! It blocks a katana!
So, yeah, Shadiversity / Shad, right? It's the channel versus the name.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Plenty of videos. Just check all the titles and find something you want to watch, and then you'll eventually end up watching them all, I'm sure, because they're very entertaining.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. This has been great.
No problem. And obviously you'll be welcome to come back and talk more about swords, castles, and how bad everything is in media.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll see you around then.
Yeah, take care of yourself. Good stuff, man. Around.
See ya.
Gotcha.
And then there were two.
You and I.
You know what, Rags? You should talk about how you've been. What have you been up to in the time you've been away? You missed a whole EFAP. How could you?
Yeah, you guys had Actman on. He actually showed up this time.
He did?
I haven't watched it yet. My access to the internet was pretty limited. But I was gone up and I went up to Missouri, family stuff, Mother's Day, all that. Met a bunch of people I hadn't seen in a long time. So I actually got back. For those of you who aren't aware, it is 6:40 in the morning where I am. I left around 8 o'clock to get here a little bit after midnight because I needed to be here, you know. So I slept before I left, got up, and here I am making. If you schedule an EFAP at 3 a.m., then damn it, I'm going to be up at 3 a.m. doing an EFAP.
That's the thing. I was saying on the previous stream, I was like, oh yeah, I got an EFAP, you know, fucking ages from now. And it's like, oh god, it's an hour. gotta get everything ready. All I've been doing is internet today, and I need to do more interneting before going to sleep. And I need to eat food. It's insane, but well worth it. I fucking loved this episode. It was great.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. I really like Shadiversity stuff. I like listening to him talk about things.
An excellent guest, or at least
just absorbing all the information.
Once you put him in his element, you could tell that he likes his sword and medieval stuff. So because I wasn't necessarily wasn't necessarily intending to just watch scenes and talk about them, but man, is it fun just going through them.
It is fun to look through it and analyze it. I really like that.
Yes, I'm still up from yesterday, Jay. What stream were you on before?
It gives us a little break from the superhero Star Wars stuff. Yeah. Branching out a bit. Matt, well, I talked to, because I have many guns, being the right proper American that I am, but I don't have any swords. So I talked to Shadiversity about getting one, and he recommended me a company, and I bought a sword from Albion from his recommendation. So he's a very helpful guy.
Awesome. Yeah, we recommend everyone should get swords. Not to kill people, just to have a sword.
I think it should be mandatory that every house has at least one sword.
And yeah, you were not on the previous one because you were away, and Wolf is not on this one because he's currently sleeping, but on top of that, Wolf will be leaving next Sunday, I believe, so we're maybe going to have enough time to fit in. We're going to try and do a recording session for EFAP movies while releasing our next EFAP movies on Sunday.
And the one we're releasing is...
Well, let's keep it as a surprise, Rags. It's the one we did most recently, the excellent film that I'll just say Blind should be able to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, exciting stuff, and I'll be putting up the stream me and Wolf did on Moolah as well. It's just basically us ripping apart the... It's like a review of the episode, and we even got joined by Geeks and Gamers, which apparently, because Wolf's not going to be around on Sunday because he's going to be gone, I'll probably be streaming my reaction to the sixth episode with Jeremy again, and possibly that Star Wars girl, so that'll be fun too. But for now, it's time for us to read some super chats. Let's make sure we get all this nice and toyed up before we possibly hit Bird Box. Everyone's assuming Bird Box from Blind. Nope, not Bird Box. Not Bird Box.
Nope, it's The Blinding. The Blinding 2.
What about the third one? Blinding Revelations.
No, Blinding Revengeance.
Revengeance. It's 4:43 a.m. here. Too bad I have to go to bed soon. I'll be around as long as I can. Well, no problem, Legion, because it'll all be on Moolah, like I said. Plenty. We got fucking. I think it was like a 5-hour stream plus this 3-hour one. You'll get plenty of stuff. And we only recently did the other EFAP. I feel like I need to start working on videos. I've got 2 Rage videos potentially to make now because of Game of Thrones. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing anymore. I was thinking about it. Like, I'll probably talk to you about it, Rags, see what you think. But this episode that just came out was so bad. I was like, surely I have to make a Rage video for this one. But it's like, but I just skipped the last one that I could have made a Rage video for. Chat was saying I should make a rage video. I was just fucking, I don't know anymore. I don't know where's up and down. That's my question. Do I even make a season 1? I'm gonna make rages for each individual one? I don't even know. I tell you, man, passionate rage is it gets in the way of a consistent release schedule. That is my objective opinion. Either way, I'll keep an eye on what people are thinking, but I think it's more than likely I'll make a rage video for this recent episode because, good God, I've never been so angry on behalf of a character I'm not even a huge fan of. As well as all the other dumb shit. I'm looking for. I can show you some of it, Rags. You'll find it amusing what happened in the last episode. But anyway,
yay!
I think they crafted coherent time travel by accident. The director's explanations for how time travel works in the movie doesn't fit with what's seen. Oh yeah, the Russo brothers have been saying some interesting things in interviews. I have found it's very, very strange. To quote another YouTuber, Mr. Enter, the most consistent time travel story is the story without time travel. I hope I got that right. I fucking talk to me, Wolf, possibly Rags, and definitely Fringy. Just don't do it. Just don't do time travel. Just don't do it.
Also, don't cheat on your wife.
That too. Pro tip. Captain Marvel should have been Adam Warlock instead. He was set up at the end of Guardians 2 and they could make a Terminator-style movie where Adam is trying to kill the Guardians. Instead we got Plank. Yeah, but she's such a great character.
People are saying watch the Jeremy Johns vid.
We can do that at the end if people really want me to check it out. I'm assuming he's changed his mind on Game of Thrones, which could be interesting. Gone from loving to hating. All of my hello, all my M words. But yeah, we're all massives here. We're all very open about it. I'm kind of glad I never got far into Game of Thrones. Otherwise, I would want to finish it, or more, very annoyed at what it's become. Yeah, most people are who stayed with it. Unfortunately, back with another one of these, Mauler. The more I think about this episode, the more I love it for being so red-pilled on the type of power-hungry lunatic SJW wham in whom Danny typifies. Again, I don't know what the reaction from people who love Danny is going to be. Some of them feel like it's justified. I think some people are very angry. I'll be interested to see what's happened. Mauler, Danny forgot the bells meant they surrendered. It makes sense, okay? Stop being a hater.
She forgot.
Thank you, Shad, for inspiring me to do unspeakable things with a very long PVC pipe at night. I'm not sure how he would have reacted to that. He would have...
Why not just say that the character forgot? It's easy. Anyone can write.
Why? Because women with power who get rejected by a guy who go dick crazy are actually not rational people. She's always been a shite leader. I agree with that. I don't agree that she's always been cool with murdering innocent people. By the thousands. Another one. Season 7, I don't want to be a queen of the ashes. Season 8, Lanny's get out Yeah, that quote didn't age well, did it? She says in Season 7, I don't want to be queen of the ashes. And it's like, she just burned the shit out of everybody, but okay. And I'm sure people will be like, but you've skipped over the important character development.
Yes, of course.
Shad, Rags,
you don't
and Mauler?
understand the theme.
What a glorious day. Rags, when can we expect videos? I'm starting to feel withdrawal. Spread love, happiness, and love.
I'm trying. I really am trying. This one's just a slog to do. And there will never be another one like it because of how much of a slog it is. I've learned my lesson.
There you go. I know you said it before, but what mic do you guys use again? Also, oh wait, well, so the AT2020 is what I'm using. What are you using, Rags?
I use the AT2020 USB Plus.
Oh, there you go.
So I think mine's the USB one, yours is the XLR one?
Yes.
They're very good. They're like $100, $120.
I think so.
Around there. Very worth it, I think. I've had this one for years and years. Never any problems with it. Works great.
Also, what milk did the cosmic chicken drink before it laid the cosmic egg? Oh, that we can answer that, really.
There are some things that people just aren't meant to know.
That's what we call high lore. Like, there's lore and then there's high lore. High lore is like...
These are just mysteries of the universe.
Yeah, to access high lore, it takes, like... There's so many microtransactions and DLCs and stuff that take you to high lore. It's crazy.
Mortals like us were never meant to know such answers.
Yeah, there you go. Does cosmic chicken milk exist, and what does it taste like?
Only the cosmic chicken knows.
I was going to say, that's really high-powered milk that really isn't accessible on, like, a lower...
They say it would drive a regular mortal man mad with knowledge and texture.
Yes. Glad to see Shad on here. I recently got into his channel and love his videos. I'm at work now, so I can't stay. Have fun. I recommend everyone get into his videos. It's just fun knowledge to absorb. And who doesn't love swords, shields, armor, castles, all that good stuff?
Yeah, man. It's good stuff.
She destabilizes empires and genocides people everywhere she goes, brings savages who reap and pillage like no one else, and goes through advisors faster than light. Varys was based and correct-pilled. Varys probably shouldn't have gotten behind her in season, like, 5 or 4 even, if that were something he felt. I don't know what took him so long to realize that if he was always going to come to that conclusion. $5 to support you and your work. I just wanted to see if you got my DM about Primer and why I thought it was interesting, and will you watch it with the others? Yeah, I'll try and watch Primer with, like, Wolf Rags, maybe even Fringy as well, and we could all try and figure it out, because I remember it being, it's quite high concept.
I think we ruined our Fringy by telling him, hey, let's watch this fun movie, it'll be great. And then it was what it was. We'll
reassure him that this one is legitimately a
like, no, this will be a different movie.
I swear, it's not like Unicorn Store, Fringy, please. Hey, Shad, you gonna do your trademark scream? I think we may have gone near that at some points during this podcast.
Ugh.
Maybe that's gonna be the bait for the round 2 when he comes back. Maybe I should put armor on these barn-sized flying lizards. Nah. Well, who needs armor when you can obliterate every single scorpion in just fucking like 10 seconds? It's not. Why not?
Hey, man, if it's your time, if the plot says it's your time, then go with no fear.
Thanks, Shad, for your Darth Maul Blade video. Yeah, it was good shit. Who let the rags out?
Who?
Chris Avalon.
It was me. I let myself out. I'm in control of my destiny.
The creator of KOTOR 2 shat on TLJ. Really? Sounds hilarious. Keep them masses.
Wait,
the creator of KOTOR 2 shat on TLJ, apparently.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
Chris
the Knights,
Avalon.
The New Order, yeah. Stop. Hated
it. Keep them massives away from Star Wars, boy. They're coming to Star Wars. There's nothing we can do to stop it, apparently. Well, Molly, you're missing a crucial plot point. Extras and expendables wear hard leather armor or light armor, while protagonists have plot armor. Yeah, plot armor's really expensive, but it was well worth it, I'd say. Jorah said the broadsword was built to pierce plate. We should probably have... This is the thing, we did definitely go over it with Shad, so...
No, like, you can't, like, just stab. You certainly can't slash through it, but you can't just stab a sword through plate mail. It's like it's a solid piece of thick metal.
It's gonna be tough. Blue. Dany suffered so much, and she was treated so unfairly. Most people loved... John Loved got killed, his life was a lie, he literally died, and he's still a good person. This shit show just got redeemed. I think that's fair, yeah. A lot of people go through tough stuff and don't turn out to be psychopathic murderers, so maybe Dany is being forgiven a little bit too quickly by a lot of people.
Yeah, that's what you think.
Even as someone who never liked Game of Thrones, I'm sorry it turned so sour. I used to say I dislike / don't watch it, but at least I can say it's good. Well... Subversion is coming. Yep. Shard, which duel from Star Wars you think is the best? I will have to... I wish we could have asked him that. Yeah, that would have been... They even bothered to show Arya stab the Night King in a gap, but forget armor works later. Hi, Shad. Yes. It's this really strange gap as well. Makes you wonder why you would have a gap.
Years, yeah.
Go to Shad's channel after EFAP. Good content, plus he's a massive. Yep, absolutely. Mauler, have you asked the episode 9 and adoption question yet? The adoption question. How would you proper bill hook fair versus plate? Again, these are... I guess I should have kept an eye on if there were any relevant questions for Shad, because obviously me and Rags can't answer these. Not that I know of. Do you know what a proper bill hook is, Rags?
Yeah, it's a kind of weapon.
How does it fare against plate armor?
I don't know. It might be because it's like generally it's like a knife size thing with a thick knife, and it's got a little pointy end that comes out of the top. You can hook people like it. I don't know if it's I don't think you could pierce plate with it. Like, plate's serious business. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
Dad, any thoughts on adoption? Don't freak out. Hello, Mola. I found a picture of one of your people. How do I get it to you? Twitter would be the best way if you're trying to share something. Daenerys did what Killmonger wanted for Wakanda. That's actually true. It's not even... Yeah. I mean, Killmonger might not have killed as many, but hey. Nice to have a live EFAP at work, and it's educational. Also, hi, special guest Shad and Rags. Yeah, Rags
Hello,
is back.
always glad to be a guest on EFAP.
The most requested guest. Millions of voices cried out in terror on social media. I guess Season 8, Episode 5 is another crap show. Absolutely. Question for Shad. How accurate/practical is the armor in Skyrim?
Huh?
Obviously Shad isn't here to answer that, but how accurate/practical is the armor in Skyrim?
Which one?
Yeah, I can't really answer that, fortunately. I vote Oldboy fight. Oh yeah, we did get to play that. Swordplay critique? Nothing escapes EFAP's gaze. Yep, you never know with this sort of thing. Would any of you rail Captain Marvel in the throat?
No.
No. There we go. Daenerys quick saved before burning everybody. I actually saw that meme on Free Folk, and if only, mate. If only. The Chad impractical stance versus the virgin cucklord technique. Not even sure. That might have been referencing Troy. I'm not sure which one. Achilles had lice, that's why he scratched his head. Oh!
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was a part of the plot that I failed to mention, that's my bad. Still going? Absolute Mad Lads. If you're referring to the stream as a whole, then it's Mad Lads considering what we normally do, but I mean, 3 hours? Me and Rags, normal. 3 hours, normal. Wouldn't they be using steel swords at this point? In reference to the Greek era, I have no idea, I am afraid. I think Google might be able to answer that. This EFAP is positive, informative, and educational. What the expletive? This isn't the toxic hate-mongering I neglect my adopted kids to watch. I'll try spitting, that's a good trick. Oh yes. I don't like my adopted son, daddled Loke. Oh shit, yeah, Rags, you're gonna have to watch the newest EFAP, because there's so many new memes. We covered Tonald. Holy fuck.
I haven't been around the internet for like 4 days now, so I got some catching up to do.
Yeah, you got a few years to catch up on.
Oh, how long was it?
I want to say 5 hours, maybe 6.
Oh, that's nothing. I'll knock that out.
Oh, yeah. The things they call dragons are actually wyverns. Yeah, I wish Wolf was here. He gets really pissed when people try and distinguish between dragons and wyverns. I think the difference is when the arms are attached to the wings or separate. When they're attached, they're wyverns.
Everyone knows that.
I think someone in chat's gonna be like, "No, Mauler." What it actually? And I'll be like, "Okay, I'm sorry." Consult chat to know the difference between a dragon and a wyvern. Bronn versus Veil Knight. Surgical technologist here. Arteries don't pump that fast. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Look for the Last Kingdom duel scenes and BOTN. BOTN, what do you reckon that is?
Bitch on the neighbors. Sometimes the neighbors are loud, the dog poos in your garden, and they're up all night, so you got a bitch on the neighbors.
I think you mean
neighbors?
Blade of the Night. That's a cooler name.
Blade of the Night?
Yeah.
You mean like shaving really late?
Yeah, and exactly that. That was what I was referring to.
Sometimes you wake up, it's 3 a.m. You need a clean shave. You don't like to feel the scratch against your pillow when you're sleeping, from your little your scruff.
Game of Thrones swapped out Ryan Johnson for Michael Bay this episode. I had a series of profanities written out, but YouTube wouldn't let me send it. I am so sorry.
Oh.
Even Jeremy Johns turned on Game of Thrones this episode. I'm actually hyped to see this now. A lot of people are saying this is evidence that it's all over.
We can watch it once we're done.
Oh yeah, we're nearly
check it out.
There. Oh shit, I caught an EFAP live. Well here oh. Oh wow, the super chats thing just fucking cut out for me. Oh, there we go, it's back.
Whee!
Terrifying. Oh shit, I caught an EFAP live. Well here goes the next 13 hours of my life. 13? That's ridiculous. We'd never go for 13. Poland can into saber fights. Alright.
Yeah, boy.
Opinions on chain swords / axes.
Chain sword? Well, a chain sword seems... Oh, man. I don't know. I feel like using a... from Warhammer, I'm guessing? Well, I don't know. You can't really slash with it. Because the whole point of it, with a chainsaw, you have to hold and apply pressure to something if you want to cut through it. And the person at the other end might not let you do that. And it might, all the little sinews and guts and fleshy bits could get caught up in the chain. I think it's a fun idea, but I don't think in reality it would work. And you'd have all that weight for the motor to run, and that weight wouldn't be part of the cutting end. It would be like near the hilt at the bottom, and the chain would have to. I don't know. It just doesn't. I just don't think it'd work.
I have no idea, because I'm not even entirely sure of what the weapon would be. Watch the duel from Alatrist dual wielding. What that is, but maybe next time. Have you guys seen Star Wars SC-38 reimagined? I have. Very cool, though I don't know if it fits in with A New Hope very well, considering that film was much more, I want to say, calm and dry, but not in a bad way, while this was very flashy, and I feel like if you were to actually try and slot it into the film, it might seem a little bit jarring, but I guess, you know, that's the point, is they're trying very hard to make it slot in, so... But very impressive, special effects-wise, and very cool. I recommend everyone check it out. Star Wars SC-38 Reimagined. YouTube it. Was awesome to see Shad on an early morning educational EFAP. This will be the educational EFAP, I guess. Shad, your video about misconceptions of medieval castles and life was great. YouTube is flooded with awful history videos which needs to be criticized. Absolutely.
Listen, if you ever see, EFAP teaches one many things. And yes, to that list we will add, if you ever find yourself in a sword fight, you will be able to draw upon your EFAP knowledge to armor yourself and arm yourself properly to give you the greatest chance of survival. Just another one of the many, many services that EFAP provides, free of charge to all of our viewers.
Very true.
We live in a world where sword fights can break out at any moment. Be ready.
Search for Shad. Oh, no. I don't know what bad things come up with Shad. Maybe I'm too naive. Did I miss Shad's screaming matriculations? And, yeah, I'm afraid we didn't get to talk about that this time around, but there'll always be opportunities next time. Any chance you guys are going to have Louis Levay, is it? Louis Laveau?
Yeah, he's kind of on the list, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely a potential. We just got a couple to sort of slot in where we can. But yeah, definitely in the future. HBO is coming to film The Nevers at my house. Wonderful. I have no idea what that is, but hopefully that works out. You guys have ruined the word. You guys have ruined the word massive for me. The other day, somebody at work described something as massive, and I started laughing in front of everyone. The best inside joke ever. A billhook is a polearm that looks like a fleur-de-lis, and has a spike on the right end instead of another blade. Fair enough. I have sent you the picture on Twitter as a reply to the Zionist. I'm probably not going to look at Twitter until after this stream now, because I've got a shit ton of notifications that just going to... It, like, seems to fuck with my ability to, like, see the live dashboard, so I don't know. But I will check it out. Trying to figure out what's more painful, seeing my last relationship of nearly 2 years slowly fade away before my eye and feeling powerless to do anything about it, or Season 8 of this show. Gotta be Season 8 of this show. That's where the real pain is. Be warned, Rags, they do a lot of slow-toadled, as we've started calling him in episode 34. Oh god, yeah, I guess we already... we call the slow version slowdled and the upped version, I think it was like speedled or something, and then there's a couple of other alter egos as well, so you have that to look forward to.
You just call him Gonald. Slow and go. Gonald.
Oh, I think... Yeah, that could have worked. It's a slow
If I was there, you'd have all this stuff.
Yep, that's true.
This is what happens when I'm not around.
Alright, so are you in the watch together?
No.
I
can be, though.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we want to check out Mr. Jeremy Johns' take on Game of Thrones. I don't know if...
Yeah, let's do it.
Will I need to pause this every so often for the copyright, or...?
I doubt for Jeremy Johns.
I'd hope not. Jeremy, if you ever see that we're covering you, we're doing this just to see what you think, okay?
It's fair use.
People have bitched a lot about this show this season. I haven't, because I've been like the hopeful optimist. Like, I don't think there are enough episodes to stick the landing, but I'm gonna hope they pull it off. But now there's today. Also, spoiler warning. I'm gonna give you that spoiler warning because I'm gonna straight up spoil this episode for you. You've been warned. Before we get started, this episode, like all episodes of Game of Thrones Season 8 that I'm talking about here on my YouTube channel, are brought to you by the Stardust app. The Stardust app is a social media app that
Jeremy, That hair is the most unfuckable thing I've ever seen.
Hey man, it's his style, alright?
I don't watch Jeremy Jahns, so wow. Man, no, don't.
Yeah, I don't. It seems very cartoony.
Let you react
Yeah,
and review
it does.
movies, trailers, TV shows for 30
like an
seconds at
Archie
a time.
Bunker
Click the link below, download the Stardust app. Follow me at Jeremy Jahns. Get your voice out there. Also, for those of you who followed me at Jeremy Jahns, tag me in your Game of Thrones posts. I have another winner to announce. A winner for them and a friend.
All right, get on with it.
All right.
Fly down to Los Angeles, California for the Game of Thrones series finale party, hoping they stick the landing to this thing, but we'll talk about that more. I'll tell you who the winner is at the end of this video. First, gotta talk about the episode. Okay. Until now, like, you can say what you want about, the battle and it was poorly lit. I watched Game of Thrones at night with no lights on, so it didn't bother me. Point is, they hadn't violated any characters this season.
Ooh, that's an interesting statement there, Jeremy, but okay. I'll let it go. You haven't violated any characters? Sure.
Until this point. Yeah, the writing this season had been weaker than others. The writing, actually, everything after season 4 had been weaker. Like, season 1...
There's a lot of Jeremys. Jeremy's the quartering, right? As well as Geeks and Gamers and Jeremy Jahns.
If you have a child, chat, which you won't, but if you ever do, don't name him Jeremy.
Mm-hmm. That'll be a massive thing to do.
4, like, masterful. Anything after season 4, it's like fine and entertaining, but it's not seasons 1 through 4. But really, it's today made me go, oh, internet was right. Really, there are 3 things that...
It's interesting how it takes something different for everybody to, like, sort of switch teams. Like, so the logic of the battle, that doesn't work on so many viewers in terms of, like, I don't care. Logic of the battle, I don't care. A character not achieving something that was clearly set up in their arc, even some people be like, I don't care about that. And then the Deus Ex sort of marking their appearances of, like, different characters teleporting around, it's like, again, they don't care about that.
Yeah,
but what seems to have definitely gotten Jeremy in particular is what they did with Daenerys, which I gave you a crash course in, so you know what he's talking about.
Yay.
Stand out, so I'm just gonna stick to them for this video. First of all, before we get into it, we were told this was gonna be a big battle. It's not a big battle, it's a massacre. Part of the problem. But first of all, the problem that had been building for a while is the fact that Tyrion's a moron now. Tyrion...
I'm surprised he said that this is a now thing. He's been a moron since season, like, 5, I think. But yeah, he's right.
Lannister, the intellect, the brain, the cunning, the tactician, the coolest one in the show by far. Now he's like this supporting character that sometimes might be smart, other times Varys is smarter than him. Most obviously now he is. Really, I feel like Varys and Tyrion, like, their roles...
I mean, Varys is dead, so Tyrion's definitely smarter than him.
Should have been swapped. See, right now, Varys is like, Daenerys is not good for the realm. Tyrion's like, I have to hope, because hope against logic. That's how I've always operated. I guess. I don't know why. I don't know why he's like that right now. But the role should have been...
Yeah, the only explanation for it is that Daenerys was nice to Tyrion season 6. She was very nice to him.
Oh.
Like, okay.
Reverse. It should have been Varys being like, I feel like she's good for the realm. Everything I do is for the realm. Tyrion should have been like, I've been around power-hungry people all my life, and she is it. That would have made more sense, but no, Varys basically tells Tyrion, not her. And Tyrion snitches, and then Varys gets burned.
Oh, dude, it is so bad. We talked about it on the stream, right? So, the idea is you've got Daenerys is going kind of insane, and Varys tells Tyrion he's probably going to do something. Not sure what it is. Going to do something. He says, like, I can't stand idly by and allow blah, blah, blah. And Tyrion's like, probably shouldn't. And Daenerys... the reason that happened is because Jon found out that he's a conflict to the throne. He told his sister, who told Tyrion, who told Varys. That's how Varys knows, and that's why he's, like, doing this sort of thing. And so Tyrion walks up to Daenerys, and she's like, someone has betrayed me. And then Tyrion's like, yep, because he's about to tell her it's Varys. And she goes, Jon. And Tyrion's reaction is so he's supposed to be the most intelligent person on this show, pretty much. And his reaction is, no, Varys. It's the most, like, why would you just say that? Why would you just tell her that it's like you wouldn't hear her out first? It's like you just fucking sold your friend down the river hardcore just because you were like, oh, we had different names in our head. That's weird. Mine was Varys. Yours was Jon. How about that?
Oh, what do you know? Oh, well. Oh,
weird.
well,
I guess we weren't thinking of the same person. Oh, well.
Yeah. Oh, forget what I just said
Death
now.
by the dragon. Snitches
I was just thinking of a funny joke you said.
Tyrion.
Yeah, it was a real shame, too, to see Tyrion do it. It was just like, oh.
What? Next, Jaime Lannister. This shit was stupid too. In last week's episode, Jaime Lannister...
Yeah, his character's done. I can't see people being happy with Jaime.
...hooks up with Brienne of Tarth, had been building for a while, and then he's like, Cersei's hateful, so am I need to go back to her. But I was like, no, he's lying. He's saying that to push her away so Brienne of Tarth will be cool for him to go, and then he's gonna go there and be like, oh, Cersei, and then he's gonna betray her somehow. He's gonna be like the Trojan.
Yes, so everyone thought that Jaime was gonna go kill Cersei. That's why he was heading back to her. Just for context, Rags, it's just like he's gotten over her throughout the whole show. That's been his like arc. He's gone from a selfish man to being a good one, and so last episode he was like, I'm going back to her. And so everyone was like, he's going to kill her. But he literally goes back to be with her and dies with her. And so it's like, oh. And so now everyone's just left like, wait, so Jaime's just old Jaime? He dies irrelevant of his development? Like, oh.
No! He just went back on everything. Jaime Lannister's, 7-season arc just came to a screeching halt because he was like, you know what? I don't want to grow anymore. I want to revert back and I'm going to crawl back to her arms. Stupid. Like, they could have just kept him in Winterfell and he could have been like, all right, I'm just going to end up with Brienne of Tarth. I'm just going to give up this whole war. But no, he does a hit it and quit it scenario with Brienne of Tarth, goes right back to Cersei, tries to help her escape, and then the walls, like the ceiling caves in and they both just get killed, embracing each other. That's a...
You can tell he's so done. Like I said, man, it requires a different amount of things for everybody. It looks like this was his breaking point.
Violation of his character arc right there. That's dumb. I get that you want to be shocking, because Game of Thrones has always been shocking. Like, the unexpected happens, but it's also laced in good writing. At least the George R.R. Martin shit was. Red Wedding, shocking. No one saw it coming, but everything was still within character. Jaime Lannister just being like, yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna go back with my dick sister. Doesn't make sense to me. That's shocking for the sake of shocking, not shocking, but with good writing, so everyone's genuinely shocked. It's like Jaime Lannister stabbed the Mad King in the back, and the writers of the show stabbed Jaime Lannister in the back. The writers are the Kingslayer. Dumb. Then there's the other thing, where Daenerys she's just a villain now. At the point King's Landing is ringing the bell, and everyone's just like, all right.
Look at that, man. It's once they surrender that she chooses to murder them all. She's not murdering them up to that point. You're like, why did you do it once they surrendered, you horrible person?
Like, what an uber dick.
Like, wow.
The fight's over. You've won. Daenerys is on her dragon like, I don't think so. I think we need to roast more people. She doesn't go for Cersei Lannister, which she could have just done. She starts cooking all the civilians. Just
literally, like, doesn't even go after the soldiers. It's like specifically the innocent people. It's like, okay.
I'm trying to destroy their infrastructure.
Firebombing everybody. Not the queen who gave the order to cut her friend's head off. Not the super zombie who swung the sword and cut her friend's head off. But just civilians, men, women, children, people trying to make a living, kids trying to play. Ash. There's a character turning heel. Then there's that. At this point, she might as well have been cut from Theon Greyjoy himself because she is a fucking dick. I don't get it. I just don't get the execution. Like I've said in my videos about Game of Thrones Season 8 that, oh, Daenerys is losing it. She's starting to become throne hungry. And I meant it, but I thought she'd be a little drunk on power. Maybe she was putting her ego first. Ego above the people, and she's unfit to lead, and Jon Snow has to step in.
Yeah, like I said, what you should be doing is she kills a couple people in a morally grey sort of situation. You're like, ooh. Get enough people questioning her decisions. Not, she's just straight up
just
evil.
Like, yeah, she's a villain now. She's evil. She's bad now. She's killed the younglings now. We've crossed the bridge. Not going back from this one.
But there's a difference between someone
destroyed
who's
the bridge after she crossed it.
Ego above the people, and someone who straight up just massacres a bunch of innocents, burning them to death with a dragon. Like, that's a line they're making her character cross, and that's a leap that we have to take to buy it. And given where she's been, I can't make the leap that she would cross that line. So I call bullshit on it. Like, I'll give the show this: Daenerys Targaryen's been a bit hardcore in some of her punishments. Yeah, but even then, I can't recall her showing blatant disregard for the lives of innocents and children. Not just disregard, like making an active effort to slaughter them. That's still a line to be crossed. That's a different kind of monster.
I love it 'cause it's so true. An active effort to slaughter children. Like, why?
No, it's It's fine.
And now out of nowhere, she just crosses it, and now she's worse than Cersei ever was.
Yep.
Cersei, in the entirety of the 8 seasons, has never killed as many innocent people as Daenerys did in this one episode. She just has to die now. That's a lot of innocent people she slaughtered. Subtlety, people! That's what made the show great. Subtlety, nuance.
Oh yeah, we mentioned that in the stream, so a lot of people have been naming their kid Khaleesi and Daenerys because of this character. Awkward. To say the least. Awkward. Like,
now it's just someone who's good going, nah, fuck civilians. Burn them all. And it's not just her, like her entire army just started slaughtering people after there was a surrender. Just Grey Worm? I liked Grey Worm. He just lost his girlfriend. No, he's just slaughtering people. You would swear Daenerys and her entire army at that standstill moment just heard a voice in their heads of Emperor Palpatine being like, execute order. And everyone just fucking snapped and started slaughtering everyone. Dragons breathing fire on everybody. It's the only thing that makes sense. And since that didn't happen, it's just the writing. Just not enough episodes, man. Characters have just kind of been fucked.
And see, like, when you get Jeremy Johns saying that you fucked it up, like, I feel like you've just well breached. You get, like, the people who are focusing on the details. Then the people who are focusing on the bigger picture, but still some details. Then the people who are only concerned with the bigger picture. Then the people who consume this so casually they might even forget the previous episode. And all of these factions are all like, nah, this is terrible. Like, what have you done?
We'll see what happens. But man, a lot of you saw this coming a mile away. I was like, maybe, but they're not going to violate characters entirely. And that's how I see this went down. I feel like Game of Thrones is slowly getting everyone on the same page where it's like, no, this isn't gonna end smoothly. So anyhow, those are my thoughts. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but that's my review. However, I did promise that I was gonna announce a winner.
Yeah, that's pretty entertaining. And
yeah, I like that. Pretty good.
He's right. And yeah, I'll probably be putting out a video that is attempting to send the same message, but obviously I'll be doing it in my own style and length. And yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do about episode 4, because I really kind of wish now that I'd made an episode for it, because I just thought that it wasn't going to be as bad as 3 ever again. I thought that was going to be like how naive I was, right?
Oh, Mauler. Will you never learn?
Will I never learn?
It can always get worse.
Yeah, the last few super chats, I'll just get them sorted out. Rags.
People are like, Mauler, but who is the winner?
Raggers needs a sword to protect his home and family in case Uncle Joe steals all his guns in 2021.
No, I legit, but this sword, it's gonna be about 9 months because they have to make them. They come like paper sharp and everything. I got hooked up with the people who make good scabbards for them. Oh, dude, it's gonna be fucking sweet. Gonna have a sword and everything. I bought the Landgraf. Oh, what a sword! What a sword!
Could I make a rage video for 2 episodes at once?
Fucking do it!
I could do that. I could do that. Can you really trust a guy with that haircut? He seems like the kind of guy that's perfectly fine with adoption.
I bet he adopted that haircut.
Well, see, the next super chat was he's definitely adopted. Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
Shadman is a hentai artist. There we go. I hope Thai fans and writers now realize they don't have a leg to stand on criticizing how Tywin took King's Landing or Walder Frey at the Red Wedding. This is the thing. The way that Tywin and Walder had victories were oftentimes with these as little amount of people killed as possible, but achieving the ultimate goal of them taking power. Well, with Daenerys, it just seemed malicious. She was just like, I've won, now time to kill all the innocent people. And you're like, oh. But yeah, I might do episode 4 and 5 in one. Fuck it, that sounds like a possible good idea. I burned them all. They're dead, every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women and the children too. I love you, John. Yep.
I love you, John.
2,323 people watching and only 631 likes. Pathetic. Come on, guys. Hey, everybody, you know, maybe they didn't like it. Maybe they didn't dislike it, and they were deciding.
Don't forget to smash that like button.
No, you have to say something more interesting than that. So like.
Don't forget to get rid of that pesky ad block.
That's the one. You need to say.
Don't forget to get rid of that pesky writing.
3 hours. We're all getting a refund, right? You had an EFAP just days ago and a bonus 2 wolf streams with me. This is the thing I was going to say. You're going to be getting a decent gap now for EFAP so that I can work on some videos and that we can just have a recovery, you know? How are you guys not EFAP'd out? Surely that happens eventually. But either way, that actually puts us to essentially the end of the stream. We will totally be looking for the next EFAP when it happens. I'll just do it. We'll check out any memes that I've missed, or as many as I have managed to consolidate into a single thing. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. Really appreciate all of the very kind donations, and yes, I'm going to be starting work on a Game of Thrones Rage, more than likely episode 4 and 5 put together. Ready for then episode 6. Who knows what's going to happen with that, and then I might work on something of a 8 overall thing. I don't know yet. We'll see. Oh, either way, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This will be up on Moolah in hours from now, hopefully, if not the next day. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Why don't you make a rage on the whole season? I probably will, but I kind of want to split them up now because I have such individual rage between singular episodes. Anyway, goodbye,
One video
everyone.
is not enough.
No.
Rage.
Goodbye.